Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
Hi.
How are you this morning?
We're good.
We're doing all right?
Yeah.
Hockey started. You got to be excited.
Yeah, I'm happy about hockey. Not happy about the Padres.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid that.
No, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's Walker Buehler.
They got off to a good start. That was tough.
Yeah, and it's weird that they scored 6 runs and didn't score after the second inning. So maybe the Dodgers found something.
Yeah, give them a little chance there.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, you're up against it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it'll be a good one.
These short series are always weird.
They are. I don't know how I feel about it, but
because it kind of feels like it just started.
Well, for the Dodgers, it did. So, I mean, I got to figure out a way to slow down Tatis Jr. I wouldn't have pitched to him last night, but that's just me.
Yeah,
I think about that stuff all the time.
There's a certain point where you're like, hey, that guy's obviously seeing the ball really well right now. Maybe we don't pitch him right now.
He's really, really hard for me to like, so I wouldn't have pitched to him at all. And I'm a big Buehler guy too. So
why do you, I know why you don't like Machado, because I don't know anybody like
similar.
Machado.
It's very the same thing.
Just don't like
the
him.
antic. Yeah, I just
like the whole thing.
Yeah, and I mean,
because I know some people
he had this stretch with, like, you know, his dad's always involved.
Yeah,
he's kind of this social media menace, and just the lack of accountability for the PEDs. And
I was gonna say, I was wondering if the PED thing was part of it.
Yeah,
I know that bothered some people.
He just was dismissive.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's San Diego and it's playoff baseball, so it's like, come on, man.
Got to get after it,
man. It drives me up the wall, but I like this time of year.
You got some playoff baseball down I-29 tonight.
Yeah, man. I mean,
I know a lot of people are going down. A lot of people.
Well, this is a good team.
It is a good team,
and I think you want to see it. I do. I think today will be, got to be tough for them. But I kind of like the Yankees. I don't always trust Schmidt, but I mean, we'll see if Lugo can deliver the goods.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's there for, right?
Yeah.
Like this is.
Yeah. So you get all 4 today, right? I think
all 4 games. Yeah, I believe
today,
so. Yeah. Well, and you get full slate of NHL today.
Yes.
Because yesterday you just had the 3.
Yeah.
Including a weird afternooner for the Kraken.
Well, I tell you what, I came out to practice and I kept saying that, and people were looking at me like I was like, why do you keep saying release the Kraken? It's not. It's not really a full slate. I think you got 5 games or something like that. I mean, the most important team plays.
Yeah,
so that's all that matters. They open with the Rangers.
Your Pens.
Yeah.
The Avs tonight at 9.
Yeah, that might be on TV too, Shane.
Can I ask a dumb question? Probably.
Sure. So you're at Vegas though, right?
Yeah, it's at Las Vegas.
So
yes,
Utah.
The hockey club is. Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me about that. That's Phoenix.
No, I know the like move and everything, but like you plan, these things don't happen overnight. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think they're probably about 8 months out still.
From having a name?
Yeah, they got it narrowed down. I think they're down to 6.
Because they did like a fan vote.
Yeah.
And I knew some of them, like the Yeti was out there, and Outlaws.
I think they're down to like 6.
But this didn't happen overnight. Like, how do you not?
I don't know. They're just going to roll with the hockey club.
I guess it works so well for Washington.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I didn't know if there was like a good reason.
There isn't.
Okay. Just poor planning?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't rush it. I mean, the football team didn't.
Yeah, but there were some other issues with the football team.
Yeah, I get it. Snyder was defiant and wanting to switch, but they had to know it was coming pretty soon. How long did the Guardians take?
Took a
minute. They weren't no name.
Right, they didn't have an interim. Right, it was Indians until it wasn't, and then it was the Guardians.
Yeah.
That's my issue more. Just like keep the other thing. I mean, I don't even care if you keep. I know you probably don't want to keep Coyotes but I'm sure there's Coyotes in Utah. There's Coyotes here.
That's a good point.
Like it's not like
I haven't been to Park City or Salt Lake recently. Ask Bill. That's his stomping grounds.
Oh, it's true. He does like it out there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's
I
not.
think he's got business out there.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It's not like it's the Utah Jazz though, which makes 0 sense. Right? Like there's Coyotes. It's an outdoorsy part of the country.
Just like hockey club. Looks like a misprint, doesn't it?
Well, and it's weird because it does look unusual. And look at the yoke logo too. That looks like a rec team logo.
So how bad do the Blackhawks have to be for Utah to? They were a minus 180 yesterday.
The Blackhawks were?
Yeah. No.
Oh, Utah was.
Yeah.
Okay. No, and they beat them up.
I don't think Phoenix is going to be Utah is going to be very good.
I don't think the HC is going to be very good.
HC. No, but there were some good ones today. Lance at Vegas. You got Winnipeg and the Oilers is going to be a good one, and so is the Pens and Rangers.
I'm kind of considering, and I might need your help with this.
What?
Adopting an NHL team for the year.
I got one for you.
So I don't want to root for the same team you're rooting for.
Yeah. You want a fun team?
Yeah, like maybe a fun team, maybe something that, because I'm trying to get into it, right?
Take Winnipeg.
Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Are they going to be on TV a lot?
I don't know, but it's a fun team.
Okay. Like a fun team to watch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Take Winnipeg. Or you could be with Drew down, like the Blues.
Nah, I know too many Blues fans, and I don't like a lot of them.
It's a good win for them yesterday.
Yeah.
Can you imagine just being in Seattle in between coffee breaks?
You're like, why is there a hockey game going on?
and stepping over needles in the street? No. And just saying, hey, I'm just going to go on and watch some hockey.
Yeah. I do. So
I wish that I would do that.
I do like the Seattle logo a lot.
Oh, it's sweet. And they got a great open.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Vegas and it's not Montreal, but it's legit.
Like, I do gravitate towards the Seattle S a little bit. Like, It's a pretty cool.
Shane, you know what we do? We got to release the Kraken.
They got a pretty cool deal there. I also appreciate they went out.
I'm a big Clash of the Titans guy.
I would say Kraken more than Knights.
What's Kraken? No, you think the Kraken is better than the Knights?
Open, yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. The Knights is pretty sweet.
What's Crack-a-lackin'?
They cranked that thing out.
Like Soulja Boy?
Yeah. Hey, watch me, you. Hey, so
I probably won't care for it tonight at about 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It might be sweepy.
I'm just
Did you watch FIU Liberty?
Yeah.
I don't believe that's going to be the group of 5 team to represent.
No, I don't either. That's because FIU's not good.
No, and they were like, I don't know. They were big dogs.
Oh, they would have had to been
17 maybe.
I don't know. I'll check what the line was.
I think it was 17 and a half.
That would have had to been enormous because FIU went in 2-3.
Yeah.
And obviously Liberty's undefeated. That couldn't have been close on the line. But no, that doesn't look like. You know what I'm really rooting for the group of 5?
Why? Ooh.
Minus 15.5 was the line there.
You're rooting for Rich Rod tonight?
No, I am really hoping for
Team Jacksonville State,
Army and Navy to be undefeated by the end of the season. One of them, if not both. If they're both undefeated, it's super.
You are Team Monken, aren't you?
I love Jeff Malkin, and I've always loved. I like the Service Academy teams because I recognize how hard it is to win there.
Yeah,
and so I really appreciate when they're good.
You like Army because
I love
Navy
Malkin.
Because people think you like script long runs.
Yeah. You got to.
You got to get creative with the run game, man.
You know, because it has nothing to do with execution or individual playmaking or anything like that. It's all about the scheme.
I would like to find me an offensive coordinator that can
This is going to bust for 28 yards.
Yeah. I mean, outside of like a reverse.
Yeah. Outside of the gimmicky run plays.
Now that's gimmicky. That's why they don't run it a ton. You're good for like 1 or 2 reverses a game.
Gimmicky.
But you don't script
the Mickey Mouse run game.
But hey,
no, I was.
I mean, not everybody can be Kyle Shanahan. Don't you see how they just break off long runs?
Wait a second. Now that Christian McCaffrey's not in there, the long runs are fewer and further between. I know this for a fact because I've watched them.
Well, people yesterday were trying to sell me that Monangai was Eric Dickerson, so maybe I was wrong on evaluating Monangai too.
Monangai physically is not
a lot of guys around the country.
Yes, yeah, he's not special.
It's a lot of guys.
That doesn't mean he's not a good running back. Or doesn't have a lot of the other.
Yeah, he's not Peyton.
Yeah, maybe his vision's a little bit better than some. Maybe his contact balance is a little better than some. But physically, he's a pretty normal Division I running back.
Right.
That's it. No, I don't understand. He's not he's not one of these freaks running like a 4.2 or something.
No.
And he's not Adrian Peterson. He's a good back.
He's a good back.
But that's it. He's a good back.
Yeah.
And
again, I do think he is a guy, and maybe I just believe what I want to, but prepping this whole thing for Rutgers.
Mhm.
I'm like, even going back to the summer with Phil Steele when I brought up Monangai,
Mhm.
he's one of those guys that fits his line. He fits the way that they want to run the ball.
Yeah.
Go back. So this is interesting. Just because people had me in my feels about evaluating him.
Yeah.
I had to go back and listen to his own coach describe him this summer.
Oh, interesting.
Big Ten Media Days.
What did Coach Shiano have to say?
Coach Shiano said, he's one of those guys that is he's a Rutgers guy, and the question was, what makes him so special? And he talked about the way that he practiced.
Mhm.
And he said how he just has this feel. He gets to the line of scrimmage. He said he's a very patient
Mhm.
runner. I mean, get that, patient runner. And then he said all of a sudden he's just through the hole.
Yeah.
Like he's, I call it kind of like that peekaboo style, but he
Can have some suddenness.
yeah, he said and how did he word it? I don't want to do it a disservice, but it was something to the effect of he may not be the first guy you pick in dodgeball.
Yeah, he's not a get off the bus guy.
So I didn't.
So you took him at his word.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
I'm like, am I crazy?
Here's
Maybe I'm not. I mean, I like him.
yeah. No, he's a good back.
Yeah, okay.
He's a good back. I think that's kind of when I was talking about last week when I said I felt like we were making Rutgers the boogeyman. Part of that was the Monangai thing. We got so freaked out about Monangai and how he's a good back. He also takes a lot of 0 and negative plays,
Which
we saw,
which was very true to form.
Yeah,
that was maybe the most spot on thing you said.
We saw that play out.
Yeah,
that's who he is as a back. He's gonna break. He's gonna bust some out, and he's gonna be super inconsistent. He's not one of those guys, and I know nobody truly is, but you have some guys you're like, give him the ball, he's getting 4 yards. Give him the ball, he's getting 6 yards. He may not bust one for 30, but he's not going backwards.
Yeah,
right.
But we do realize you don't scheme big runs
right
outside of reverse.
So there's a couple outside of the kind of trick plays, right? So there's a couple things I wanted to ask you though about this though, kind of in conjunction with Monangai and Nebraska's running backs.
Why?
Because I'm curious.
Oh, like George?
Sometimes. More like
What?
the man in the yellow hat,
Of course.
Why?
We'd rather be the master than the monkey. I get it.
I didn't say it.
I get it.
I just like the hat.
Yeah. Oh, George. Come on, George.
No, so 2 things about the running game because I think it's interesting. You mentioned Monangai's feel, right? That seems to be something that's sort of missing from Nebraska's running back room.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a teachable skill, or is that, hey, you kind of just have a good feel or you don't?
So I think it's teachable.
Okay.
But Nebraska has a couple of different so they have some different schemes.
Okay.
Like, have you ever watched guys that run zone?
Mm-hmm.
But there are good zone backs.
Yes, 100%.
You know what it is when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to describe.
They kind of have. So I mean, the most famous one's Terrell Davis, right? He kind of have the feel, and then he's kind of, especially on that stretch, right?
Yeah.
On that stretch play, and
Like a Priest Holmes.
yeah, and you're kind of waiting it out to you probably aren't going to go corner, but you're kind of
You know who probably would
stringing it out to the corner.
Would probably be a good zone guy.
Who?
Walter Payton.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, feel in that regard, how are they coming off?
Mm-hmm.
Are they, how is it the first?
Because feel is kind of a combination of a couple things, right? Like part of it's vision.
Yeah.
Right. Part of it's patience, timing. It's sort of the package of the running back intangibles.
Yeah, I think our bigs up front will tell you, there's a difference between, running. We had, let's say 43 or 47 dive,
Mm-hmm.
which was basically kind of just inside zone for us even back then.
Yeah.
And, Coach Solich would say that looked like it hurt.
Oh, yeah.
He would say, even back then, he'd say, hey, press the point of attack,
Mm-hmm.
which means stay on your path as long as you can until something gets you off. And you'd read middle linebacker. If he gets over the top,
Mm-hmm.
cut back. If he holds, stay play side.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you did that,
Mhm.
the more it turned into like this feel kind of thing.
Yeah, because the longer
But
you
then we would
wait,
turn around and we would run like 41, 49 outside, which is stretch. Similar concept, but a different feel. Like I hated the play.
yeah,
It's actually the play. It's the play that LP scored on against Okie State. It never even got to the edge.
yeah,
Right? He just he took the first. It wasn't even a vertical crease. He took the first crease he thought he saw.
yeah.
He made like 17 guys miss. But so there's or you could run like, let's just say power. Power isn't like a feel thing. When Nebraska gets in the eye, they down block with the tight end, they kick out with the fullback. That's not
Create a hole and go.
That's not necessarily feel.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just different within the scheme.
So Nebraska runs some zone stuff.
Yeah.
Some more power stuff.
Yeah. They do both.
Is there
a downside?
Yeah.
Yeah. There can be.
To just not allowing the guys to
get. You should ask Coach Secor. We tinker with our run game all the time, and sometimes it depends on the type of back we have.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm dead serious. But I also think we do a lot up front. As sometimes we gap, sometimes we zone, sometimes we base. Like I think what we do up front as an offensive line unit is difficult.
So let me ask you this about: is it harder switching between power and zone on the running back or on the offensive line?
So that's a great question. Wow, that's a good question.
Because the offensive linemen have guys.
That's a great.
There's some offensive linemen that are good power versus good zone too.
This
right?
isn't because it's me. I would probably say the running back.
Yeah,
but there are some linemen that aren't really
right. They're better at the zone versus the power as well.
Yeah,
because like I think
no, that's a good. I would probably say the back.
Because I think of a guy like Mark Schlereth.
So you know what? You want a good example?
Yeah.
And Chicago Bears fans will know this. So like look at Montgomery in Chicago versus Montgomery in Detroit.
Sure.
It's just different.
Yeah, he looks like a different guy.
There were stretches.
And he was good
in Chicago.
He was, but he looks like a different guy now.
Yeah,
he's the guy that scares you now.
It's just a different scheme.
So how much of what Nebraska fans deem to be struggling in the run game do you think has to do with backs? Because you talk about backs fitting their O-line.
Yeah.
How much harder is it to fit your O-line when you're doing a couple different things?
I think it's a little of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's some of it's on the backs and some of it's on O-line. But I'm also not one of those guys that's throwing my hands up at the run game.
I'm not either.
So, like, I'm not.
But there's definitely a perception.
As I look at that picture, Rezak with us.
There's definitely a perception out there that the run game isn't what we hoped it would be.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what we hoped it would be because I don't
either.
Listen, I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
I'm dead dog serious. I don't know anybody that loved either the running backs or the offensive line in preseason.
I certainly don't know anybody.
I don't know anybody.
I certainly don't know anybody that loved both.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right. I know some people.
Not a soul.
I know some people were higher on. Like I was higher on line. Yeah, I was higher on the offensive
starts,
line.
Right. Yeah. But
a lot of starts.
But now that we're seeing it, it's like.
And I even went to the depth, right? Because I went through that whole exercise when Teddy P got hurt.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, hey, they've got a lot of guys. They've shown the ability to develop. Maybe we don't panic today. And we've got Gunnar Gatula, who nobody thought that much of coming into the season. Have you noticed him be bad yet?
No.
I'm not saying he's been great.
No, I know.
But, if you haven't noticed an offensive lineman, that's probably a pretty good sign for them, right?
Yeah.
Most offensive linemen live in that kind of anonymous zone where you're not doing things where you're like, oh, my God, he's just blowing people up, right? Yeah. And that's mostly in the run game. And he's not doing things where like, oh, man, he is just getting smoked, which is usually in the pass game, right? Gunnar Gatula, I almost never notice him. That's a terrific sign for a redshirt freshman who's never started Big Ten football before, right? So I felt pretty good about the offensive line. I've been very adamant that the running backs are just fine, right? And I think they are just fine. I don't know anybody that felt really good about both. I do know some people pretty high on EJ, right? Our guy TK was one of them. You liked EJ a lot.
Bless you.
That's kind of, to me, why his struggles against Rutgers were so disappointing, because that felt like an EJ game to me.
You're overthinking it, though.
How so?
Because not everybody's on their A game.
Sure.
Right?
But that looked like a game to me, the style that Rutgers kind of.
I mean, they left a free defender for EJ.
Yeah.
And he didn't win.
Yeah.
That happens.
No, for sure. But that felt like a game to me going in where I was like, oh, I think EJ could do well here.
Yeah.
And I think he could have done well. He just didn't, right? That doesn't mean he's not going to do well ever again. Mm-hmm. But I do think the conversation is really interesting because a lot of Nebraska, we talked about what it feels like versus what it actually is earlier in the week, right? I think Nebraska fans just want the power running game where the offensive line's blowing people off the ball.
Line up and run the ball.
The running back finds the hole, and boom, it goes for 6 to 12 yards every time. Yep. And people, that's what I think they want.
Yeah. They didn't like it when we did it, but.
Yeah, they think they liked it now. They like the results of it now, so they think they liked it in real time.
So I think of it, and you heard Coach Rule say it.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you want to turn 5 and 6 yard runs into 20, 25 yard runs.
Like, is it the scheme's fault that Dante Dowdell didn't get past that last guy?
But so you need everything to go right, though. If you want explosive plays in the run game, you don't script them, you block them.
Right.
Right.
But you block for like a 6 yard gain, right?
Everybody has to win. You have to win on the next level. Mm-hmm. That means a guy can't slide off on a double. That means you have to win on the perimeter. Like, all those things matter.
Because, like, the first initial, right?
Now, occasionally, you will get guys. Amir was really good at this, but he didn't rip off a ton of long ones.
Right.
Occasionally, you just gotta make a guy miss.
You got a guy who makes a play. I do want to get into that for a second when we come back here, because I think that kind of the progression of what has to go right for a running play to hit big, I do think is interesting. And I think we only think about it at the initial point of attack, and that only gets you like 4 yards.
Yeah.
Right? Winning at the initial point of attack is worth 4 yards.
That's right.
I want to get into that more when we get back. We'll also set up the show, let you know what we've got coming up. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Coming up on the show today, we've got Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. 8:30, Andy Kendeigh from KETV. 9, we've got Jesse Rogers covering Major League Baseball for ESPN. And we'll wrap up the show with Stephen Means, who covers Ohio State for Cleveland.com. They've got the big one against Oregon this weekend.
I feel like that game is not.
I feel like a penguin.
Does it seem like that's the biggest game of the slate?
I mean, it definitely is, but I feel like it's going a little under the radar.
Is there something else going on that I'm missing other than Saleh getting fired?
That people aren't talking about it very much? It does feel like it's kind of flying under the radar a little bit. I don't know why. Because
this is a good weekend.
I mean, it's basically the same level of game as Georgia-Bama was, right? What, 2 versus 3, 2 versus 4. That's what the matchups have been. That's an enormous game. It's a great weekend. Maybe it's because there's so many other good games this weekend that's flying under. Like
that might be it.
Like you got Texas, Oklahoma.
Yeah. I
know USC's lost a couple, but those are huge brands. Penn State, USC. That's the only thing I can think of is because that's an incredible game.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon, Ohio State is the game of the weekend in my mind by far. But you've also, I know Florida's not any good, but you got Florida, Tennessee, which is a huge rivalry.
You got a Group of 5 elimination game.
Oh, which one's that?
Coastal and James Madison.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I think they're both 4-1, right?
Yeah, Ole Miss, LSU this weekend as well. There's a ton of them.
It's a tricky one.
I'm weird, man. Colorado's put me in a weird spot now.
Because you think they're good?
Because I want them to be good to validate Nebraska. Like I'm looking at this and I was like, oh man, if Colorado beats K-State, that's a good win.
Yeah.
Like that looks good.
You want a tricky one?
What's that?
Utah going to Arizona State.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at one point I thought Arizona State's going to be all right. I mean, they're
4-1. I mean, how you feel about Sam Leavitt?
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Is Texas Tech any good?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's not a bad loss.
I kind of think so.
Okay. Because that'll change how you feel about Arizona State. It's how you feel about Texas Tech.
Remember, I like Texas Tech in that one. So yeah. I think Texas Tech is pretty okay.
Okay. Because if you like Texas Tech, that changes how you feel about Arizona State, I think. Right?
100%.
Because I don't know, Texas Tech just has that one Washington State loss. But that was it was 3 touchdowns, I think. So that was a pretty bad one.
Again, I said this kind of on the fly yesterday because we ran out of time in our Bet On It segment.
Mm-hmm.
Level of surprise that Rutgers is just 2.5. See, I don't with that. So there's 2 things that lend me to believe that the perception of Rutgers was greater in the state when we played them than I think the national perception. Number one, they weren't ranked.
I was going to say, the rankings tell me that.
Right. So
they're a 4-0 Big Ten team that wasn't ranked?
Yeah, and the minute Indiana showed flashes,
boom,
they were ranked.
Yeah.
And they played a less favorable schedule.
They played one of the worst schedules in the country. I think it's 132.
So I don't know if it was because people got a chance to watch them play against Washington that didn't get them in.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then
what do we think? Well, we think Washington's okay, so I don't know.
Just a slight fave against Wisconsin. And I'm not sure who thinks Wisconsin is good.
How much of that do you think is – because I know we don't think Purdue's any good, but Wisconsin put it on them.
Yeah, Purdue may have tapped.
Yeah.
So, I grain of salt that.
I do,
but
too.
I'm not sure. Like, I guess I would have to watch Locke settle in more. But remember, it was apparently a quarterback battle. In Madison.
That's what they tell me. I don't feel good about either. I mean, I didn't feel good about Van Dyke. I don't feel good about Locke.
So if Wisconsin goes into Piscataway and wins, is that going to change our mind again?
I think that tells me more about Rutgers than it does Wisconsin.
Really?
Yeah.
But you have a good frame of reference for Rutgers because you've seen them a couple times now.
Yeah.
And that could still move your needle on Rutgers?
I think so. Because here's how I felt about Rutgers coming into the Nebraska game, right? It was, hey, I don't know how sustainable this style is of, hey, we're going to give up a ton of yards and we're going to be mediocre or like we're going to be like good in the red zone maybe. Like how sustainable is that, right? And I talked about that.
And we went in depth in that a ton.
Yeah, so if I thought Rutgers was sort of flawed coming into Nebraska and then they lose to Nebraska and then they lose to a Wisconsin team that I don't think is very good, then that tells me more that Rutgers is kind of what I thought they might be early.
The Baba Yaga.
Yeah, they're kind of just this, hey, we made them into a boogeyman. Like they're pretty one-dimensional offensively. I think, I know the wind was messing with both Kalakmanis and Raiola on Saturday, but
no,
Kalakmanis doesn't scare me.
I think
as a passer.
And then getting Wisconsin at home will probably limit our fear factor, even though we don't have a ton of success against them.
Yeah.
But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
It's kind of weird because I am sort of flushing the Wisconsin struggles out of my mind because of both teams have changed so dramatically.
That's fair.
I
mean, that's just.
And I don't know if other people are doing that and why.
Fair.
But like Iowa's still Iowa.
I just think, and I said this last year, so maybe this is just going to be the way that I go.
Yeah.
I'm a lot less, unless you're critiquing a team over time. I am not a big. I have always hated the transitive property anyway. But I think you just have to take the wins as you get them. Now, if you told me, hey, I've watched, like Joel yesterday, he's like, hey, I've watched Indiana. I don't think this. I don't think that. I don't think he's not utilizing that as a transitive property.
No, he's just evaluating.
He's just evaluating
which is
Indiana.
Different.
That's different.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'll take that. So the whole how I look at teams, I always like to do that. So we have to hold ourselves accountable when Nebraska plays these teams. So hey,
100%.
What do you think about this team? Now, what I hope people eventually say is, doesn't matter, just win.
Yeah,
that's what I hope to get to because
100%.
The longer we do this, I think the less apt you are to be able to be right. Yeah. It is truly going to be week to week.
It's really, really hard. It's really hard.
So you just have to be appreciative and move on because you won't be able to make sweeping generalizations about 80% of these teams.
That's why I made the distinction. I think it was with Mitch.
That's the only reason I ask.
Yeah.
I don't really want a real answer. I want you to have to say it out. Not you, but I want people to have to think about it out loud and then hold themselves to that.
Hold them to keep your own receipts. Right.
And then if you keep changing your mind, like if Like if you say this week, if Iowa blows the doors off Washington and Iowa's good again, then Iowa's good, right?
Yeah.
Or hold that thought.
I've thought Iowa was good the whole time. Like
I just used them as an example.
I know. But Iowa is a good example, right? Because Iowa is who I thought they were in the sense of they play a ton of close games. Those close games generally go their way. Like they lost 20-19 to Iowa State. That's a very Iowa game, right? That doesn't change who I thought about Iowa. It made me think like, oh, Iowa State might be having a decent year. But Iowa's exactly who I thought they were.
You hold that thought about Iowa State because they probably need to get a lot more run.
Man, I'm a Matt Campbell guy.
I don't like to put the quarter in.
Let's get to Lance on the Hurrdat hotline. Got a couple minutes here. Lance, what's going on?
Hey, guys, I don't know if it's an undervalue or an overvalue thing in terms of the teams that we play.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it has to do with what we think of our team and do we not know how good or bad they are because we're trying to decide how good or bad our competition is. I think the toughest team we play will be Indiana to date when we play them. But I look at Rutgers, and I don't know if we overvalued or undervalued them. I just don't think we necessarily knew how good they were.
So don't you feel like that about Indiana, though?
No, because I look at Indiana offensively and defensively, and even though they haven't played great competition,
they've done what they're supposed to.
They've balled out.
Yeah.
Yep, they've balled out. And so I don't want to disrespect our win because a win is a win and winning is hard. But, Rutgers took a touchdown to the face mask and then they doinked to kick off the upright.
Yeah,
so
you know why I don't get into that because that happens all – if I could play if they made this play thing all the time. That's what makes sports.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think it's hard to say, like, if we overvalue or undervalue. Because when I look back at that game, I don't know. I don't know if I can do that with Nebraska. It's hard to, in terms of go back and look at individual plays when I look at that game. Because I don't know if there's an individual play that comes to mind where I'm like, man, we just didn't catch it or whatnot. So I think it's really hard when you're a team that has some of the flaws that we have how we value those other teams because we know like that margin is so close. If they don't hit it, then it's over.
Yeah.
Lance, appreciate the call.
I want to go back to Illinois, man. If they would have done that, or if they didn't call that back,
they didn't call that back.
I don't do that.
If Raiola doesn't overthrow a guy in the end zone, if they uphold the catch for Nair, like you can do this all day, right? Like that's just kind of how sports play out. We will get to more Nebraska, Big Ten, MLB, NHL coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're brought to you by our friends at Big Brother, Big Sister. They're trying to get 60 men in 60 days, ending with the end of October, to try and find new mentors for young boys in our community. There have been people on that waiting list for over a year, and so many of them are young boys. Get signed up for mentoromaha.org to be part of those 60 men in 60 days. But you can also be a big sister or a big couple as well. Make sure you get over to mentoromaha.org to be a part of what Big Brothers Big Sisters is doing. DB.
Yes.
We got an interesting tweet over the break there from our guy Denny.
Oh, DP, yeah.
And I think it's a point that
I got to answer. Did you met him upstairs? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I met him in the press box.
Okay.
I like Denny. We talked for like probably 20 minutes.
Listen.
Yeah.
Good dude.
We talked for probably 20 minutes before really Illinois, I think.
Yeah.
But he asked the question, has the Husker fan base completely skipped the step of just win? Did we go from good product on the field straight to better be a CFP contender?
Yeah. We're as little as we've won. How are we? Why are we evaluating?
How are we this picky?
How are we this picky? Just nitpicky.
Yeah.
That's why I temporarily lost my mind yesterday about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not this in the run game. It's this. I'm like, are you listening to yourselves?
Yeah.
Like, so now it's not just necessarily committing to the run. It's
committing to a certain type of run.
Certain type of run with a certain type of back in the run game. And I'm like, Like I'm done. Like I'm just, it's just ridiculous.
Nebraska's 5-1 right now, right?
They'll get there.
Yeah.
And the thing that really bugs me is you can say that and know they're not finished. It's not being dismissive. I'm just telling you, teams that are on the ascent to be winning programs don't spend a lot of time focusing on what they aren't yet. You can always go back and clean that up.
Yeah.
You have to accentuate your strengths and take what you can get right now.
Because in the process of getting better and making it look pretty, first of all, Nebraska hasn't earned the right to win pretty right now.
So this is my favorite now.
Yeah.
Okay. It's something different every day. Just depends on. But I like a new favorite to float my boat. Now it's, well, why can't they play 4 quarters? Lord have mercy if you guys don't knock it off. Figure out how to play 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. If you're doing it while we've had games where they can't play any.
Yeah. And they've had games where I think they've played well for 3.5 quarters and still lost.
So it's like, is it always something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It is always something.
That's my new. Well, this is the first half, the second half thing. It's like you better hope and pray that you're in a situation where you have to watch Nebraska salt possessions in the second half because they're winning.
100%.
I mean, isn't that like that's what
the
we're
goal,
after?
right?
That's what we're after, right?
But
you want to be able to see that all the time.
It's 100% just I think if Nebraska had gone and scored, I mean, we're talking about like one more touchdown a game, right? And people I think would feel dramatic. Like if they score one more touchdown
Probably
against Colorado, let's say the Ramir one doesn't get called back, they probably feel different about Colorado. Let's say they score a little bit more against Northern Iowa, they get to 40. You feel a little bit better about Northern Iowa, right? Let's say they score a first half touchdown against Purdue and it ends up being 35-10 or whatever that was.
Or they don't give up the score late.
So it's 28-3. Like we're talking about one touchdown a game basically, and people would feel dramatic. Like they've had those opportunities. They've had those opportunities to get one more score. I know. But let's say Jalen Lloyd breaks the tackle on the fake punt and scores. People feel differently about Rutgers. Now, then we still would have they still haven't won a one-score game yet.
Yeah.
It's always something, right? And
but
Nebraska.
They did just win a one-score game.
Right, but I'm saying if Jalen Lloyd had scored, if they gotten the extra.
It'd have been something else.
Yeah, if they had gotten the gravy that people wanted, then it would have been something else.
I'm stuck on this whole. I think there's something to learning how to receive nice things too.
100%.
Not just have them, learning how to receive them.
Which is, again, why I went all the way back and be like, hey, we can only handle a certain level of success this year.
Yeah, Tony was like, he had his skirt and pom-poms on for you yesterday. I saw what old TG posted.
Like it's a real thing. Learning how to receive nice things. You know people that can't take a compliment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You brought it. That's the example you used. But what I'm saying is, it's like we're nitpicking 5-1.
Yeah. And the one loss is an overtime loss to a ranked team, a still ranked team.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into that because I was making excuses. And I can say Illinois was good, and Nebraska still should have won that
100%
game.
They should have won that game. And that's the only game that Nebraska's lost this year, is to a ranked team in overtime where they had plenty of opportunities to win.
It's going to happen if they beat Indiana.
I don't know, but I'm having a really hard time with this sudden – because how many times do you hear over the last 7-8 years that, oh, man, I would love to just win like Iowa?
No, here. Do you one better?
What? Go ahead.
We just invent ways to lose.
Yeah, now they're finding ways to win, and it's not good enough?
Now they're finding ways to win.
Yeah. And we're still
How many different ways? There were some stretches, I'm raising my hand, where I was floored at all the different ways Nebraska found to lose.
I think we all were. It was astounding.
It was something different almost every week.
It was almost impressive in a sense that they never lost the same way twice.
So guess what I'm not going to do?
Complain about finding ways to win?
Nope.
Not even a little bit.
It's just hard.
It's hard to win.
It is.
It's hard to win.
It really is.
You know?
Yes.
And let's not forget, we're only halfway through year 2. You want to really I know everybody goes year 2 rule, right? But the real jump was between 2 and 3.
Yeah, I've always been the year 3 guy with him.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, we think because they went 5-7 last year instead of 1-11 like he had in his previous stops, that, we're in year 3. No, we're not. We're in year 2. We're in year 2. Just because you started a little bit better doesn't mean the process speeds up. Because his process, he told us this last year. He goes, if I know how to do it faster, I would. I don't. It takes me about 3 years.
Yeah. He wasn't kidding either when he said he gives himself about 20 minutes. Okay, what's next?
He said that like word for word.
Yeah.
If I could do it faster, I would. It takes me about 3 years. We're in year 1 and we're at 1.5 on the dot.
Yeah.
Right? And guess what? They're still 5-1. They're still in a position to have a successful year by any measure that we would have taken from the start of the season. Let's get Jack wants to talk about the running back game a little bit. Jack, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys. Well, I tell you what, I will take an ugly win any day of the week over a pretty loss.
Amen, brother.
Remember those days when we'd sit around here and talk, we'd get a coach at the podium and he'd tell us all the great things we did, but we lost the game.
Yeah.
You know, and
for
years.
I'm still traumatized, Jack.
Absolutely.
Best 3-9 team in the country, Jack.
I'll take a 6-3 game for a win any day of the week.
I'm still traumatized. I felt miserable for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Here's my deal. If you tell me if I get the dumbass call of the week, I'll accept my award. But and I'll wear my little medal proudly. I record every Nebraska sporting events automatically.
Bless your heart.
Basketball, football, just automatic. If I don't want to watch them, I delete them.
Yeah.
But I record every one of them automatically. So I went back. I've been struggling a little bit with this running game thing. I read people say, well, our offensive line can't block. I don't believe that. I don't either. Our running back, we need better running back. I don't believe that. I don't think we got any All-Americans, but I don't think our running backs are bad backs like we can have in the past sometimes. All right. I wondered, I kept wondering about it, so I watched the Rutgers game again yesterday. And on some of those plays where we hand the ball off, and I was looking for a tell. I was looking for something we might be doing that kind of tips a little bit what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, and if you watch those games, go back and watch. And I watched the running game play. It got like Dodell got like 0 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just no place to go. So I backed it up again. I watched the play again. Dylan sometimes holds the ball out way before the running back can get to the ball to get it.
Oh, like out of that split action, right?
He's doing that so obviously early. Like if he holds it out to the right, we're going to go right. Holds it out to the left, we're going to go left. And he holds the ball sometimes out so long before the running back gets there. And if you back it up and you watch the play again, then those linebackers are filling those gaps, and those safeties are coming up, and there's just more people there than we can block. And if you think I'm nuts, I'll accept it.
Yep.
But I watched that game over and over, those plays over and over yesterday. And the few plays we had that were pretty successful, he didn't do that quite so obviously.
Okay.
But a lot of those plays that went no place, I was holding the ball out.
And you felt like defense was already coming downhill, right?
Yeah, they're seeing that, and they're squeezing.
Okay.
All right, guys.
I'll check
you later.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and take a look at that.
I know the plates. It's the little split zone action.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
Dallas used to be really good at running that. They were the best I had seen do that.
I haven't looked at that specifically, so I'll have to go back and look.
See when those DB, when they
when the defense starts moving. Coming next, we're going to talk to Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys doing?
I'm good. I always feel like I'm breaking up kind of your meeting of the minds at pregame. Would you like me to not come over there anymore?
No.
Everybody's banging away on your keyboards. I'm like, the game hasn't started yet. What are we doing?
It's just my way of so people don't come talk to me. But when you come do it, it's an honor.
Schaefer's by far and away the meanest.
Is he? Well,
but it's not intentional. This is what I convinced myself of the other day. I felt like it was because the Guardians were going. Is that what it was? Probably.
He was definitely locked into that. By the way, I'm going to keep beating my chest about this. Way back on your show, it's the only show I said this. I said Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
We're going to be a problem this year.
Sure did.
And they're still hanging around. So I feel really good about that. And I just want to keep pumping myself up because I don't have many things I get right. So that one I feel good about. But you can come visit anytime, Damon.
Okay.
It's
always the same three. They put them right together. It's Bruncy, Schaefer, BC.
Yeah. If I've ever put off the impression, I don't want Damon Benning in my circle. That's something I got to
Oh, maybe it's just because I'm not. I always have jokes, and maybe I'm not that funny. I don't know. I did like my Werther's walk-off, though. You gave me a thumbs up over that, so I felt better.
Did you guys know that the Cheez-It representatives were there on Saturday?
Oh, Bruncy texted me. During the game, I almost laughed on air. I almost laughed on air.
Didn't they have multiple seats in the press box, the Cheez-Its guy?
Yeah. He said he was a little dressed down this week, looking a little more comfy. I asked him if he was flipping Cheez-Its out of his pocket. That might be a thing, though, BC. That actually might be a real thing.
Yeah, it could be. You do have to have multiple Cheez-Its guys for each flavor, though. So that kind of makes sense as I think through it.
You know what?
Talk about good jokes. That was one right there, man. Wow, that was good.
I can't, not to go back to Detroit, but I'm not even sure who they're throwing today. I'm not even sure if Detroit knows who they're throwing today, but I think they win. I think Cobb might be in trouble for the Guardians. I really do.
There was like a month or two ago when no one was paying attention to them, except I could see them creeping up on the Twins for the wild card. And they kept winning games. They won like 3 games with 2 outs in the 9th inning where they'd hit a home run. And I was just like, something's happening there. And so I don't doubt you at all. I think they've got the right juju right now, so that they're very dangerous.
Yeah, it's super strange to me because, like DB said, I mean, they're officially undecided on who they're starting.
That right?
And and ESPN still has them as a favorite to win.
I mean, nothing strikes fear into, guys like Cobb taking the bump, like, I don't know, Perez and Torkelson and, Meadows. And I know everybody's like, who? Yeah, exactly. When I say Ibanez, you think Raul, and it's like, no, it's not that Ibanez. It's different.
Raul's been gone for a minute now.
It's Andy.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy.
There's like one team a year, too, that kind of catches it and ends up with like 86 wins. That's a real problem in the postseason. Like the Phillies when they made their first run, and
Diamondbacks last year.
Shoot, they're in trouble too. The Mets, they might just be a team of destiny. They're so clutch.
Yeah.
But we forget about the Mets though, BC, and we're going to talk about this at 9. So I don't know why we're wasting your time with this.
$250 million payroll.
Is the Mets were supposed to be good in the off season?
Yeah.
They just got off to a slow start.
Yeah. Mets Tigers. There you go. I'm sorry to say that. You don't want to hear that.
Oh God, that's
no. Listen, I just want to see Tatis stop hitting the ball out of the ballpark. That's what I want to see. That'd be nice.
Mets Tigers sounds terrible, BC. Let's get to Nebraska here a little bit. There's been a lot of maybe it's just us. How have you? I know you guys interact with your subscribers on the message boards a lot. And you get a pretty good sense for, I think, how the state's feeling. Are you surprised about the tone of the Nebraska fan base considering they're 5-1?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know exactly what the tone is because I think it's all over the place.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Does it surprise you that it's all over the place?
No, it's just it's sort of the way of the world with a passionate fan base. I think like if you were doing a radio show in Philadelphia, you know, even when the Eagles are having a good season or something, you're going to get sort of all these mixed bag opinions, and there's going to be something someone thought could have been a little better. And
is it 10-1 Eagles or the team that finished the season? I'm kidding.
Yeah, like a good Eagles squad. That I was thinking of kind of nutso fan bases, so that's why they came to my mind. But yeah,
you know, would be a good one probably is the Vikings. I bet they're still scared and a little shaky, even though they're 5-0.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Like right now today on Minnesota radio, I'll guarantee you a fourth of the calls at least, even though they played really well, are about how the shoe is going to drop. You know, so there's some of that I think just is built into any fan base. So you're certainly getting some of that. I think there's a lot of fans, I feel like, who like right after the game they have one opinion, and then it sort of shifts 24 to 48 hours later where the game grows on them a little bit, or the outcome settles in, and they're like, you know what, on Saturday morning, you know, you wake up and if you still watch College Game Day, you see Nick Saban picking Rutgers and you see stuff like that, and you think about, like, you know, Nebraska won a quality game. Like maybe there were some things on offense you would have liked to have been a little bit more refined in the second half for sure. But that was a game going in that was a 7-point spread you thought could be
low scoring,
you know, kind of an alleyway fight. Yeah, just like it was. And Shiano has those type of teams that feel comfortable, I think, in those kind of games, and you beat them in a game where they probably felt at home a little bit. So I sensed the reaction as the second half was playing out. There was sort of annoyance, like, come on, put the hammer down here, have it be a 28-7 kind of game, because it seemed like it maybe could be at one point. But then by Sunday and Monday, I did feel like a lot of people, at least on our board, were like, you know what, they're 5-1. A lot of people had them 5-1 or thought that would be good going into the bye. There's a golden opportunity against Indiana, you know, coming out of the break. That's going to be just a fascinating game. So I've seen kind of that outlook just as much as sort of the picking at stuff. But there will definitely be some picking at stuff throughout this week, I'm sure. That always happens.
BC, let me ask you a two-parter here. On average, like generally speaking, when we're finishing up and you're doing your post-game stuff, about how many points do you think Nebraska leaves on the field?
Man, that's good. I think that's probably the thing that people are picking at a little bit. It's the thought. There's that, like.
I was gonna say, there's no wrong answer, but like a right answer. What generally do you think? How many points?
I think here's the best way I can put it. I think they've been a touchdown away, like in Saturday's game and the Colorado game, from some of the calls or whatever you may get in the days that follow, from those not being there. I mean, like if Ramir's touchdown against Colorado had stood up and you had that sort of exclamation point, you know, to that game in the second half where it's like, okay, there's that highlight where, you know, people are watching it back in their 60-minute games that BTN plays, and they're like, I'm actually going to sit and watch the second half because I want to see Ramir's touchdown. You know, those sort of plays, I think people like that finishing piece to it. And there have been two games in particular where that didn't quite happen, you know, where you didn't have that moment. Like if Jalen Lloyd just breaks that tackle, it's there for them. And so I'd say people might say there's been like that 7 points sort of in the second half that's been sitting out there that maybe would have appeased some people a little bit more, even if they're not even thinking it would have. I think it would have.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Let's say you're right. Let's say Nebraska on average leaves 7 to 10 points on the field. Okay. Do do you think if you want to have your glass half full, could you be encouraged as the season goes on, as they sit currently at 5-1, that law of averages kick in, that they'll start to convert some of those?
Yes, you can.
Because that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, and I think you've seen that there are the plays there to be made.
Right? Like I can be encouraged by that, right?
Oh, absolutely. There were definitely multiple plays, like in the Colorado game, where you could have put 7-14 more up. And flags were involved, and whether they were good calls or not, you can debate that. But the bottom line is there was some stuff down there that says that can translate, that is portable into the second half of the season. And so I do think people should be glass half full right now. I mean, I think this is it's sort of on the track of a lot of people in mid-August, if they had looked at certain categories and said, okay, this turnover problem has existed since Y2K with Nebraska football, it feels like. Can they actually figure it out? There was hope, but people, I think, were skeptical until they saw it, and here they are, +6. Dylan, I think, has played good football in 5 of the 6 games, I would say. Maybe he was a little off the last one, but I think you've got a lot from your true freshman quarterback that makes you think he's going to grow from those experiences and maybe be even better down the stretch. Nair and Banks were guys that there was excitement in reading their names, like they could do this, but you didn't know that for sure until you saw Banks in a Husker uniform convert some third downs and show those strong hands and do some of the stuff he has, that was going to happen here in Lincoln, and it has. So there's all sorts of parts there that are good. And then, like, you're right, there's stories like that have popped up, and weren't even thinking about that on August 15th. So sometimes you got to backtrack a little bit and think about where was my mind at on certain topics with this team, 7 or 8 weeks ago. And a lot of them are as good or a little better than maybe you would have even thought. And maybe there's 1 or 2 that aren't. And all in all, I think you'll take that if you want to make the glass half full argument, which I would.
Okay, so if you want to transition psychologically, like as a fan base, what do you think has to happen, or how do you see it playing out, where there's a bye week and you know that you're facing a good team, or undefeated, and there isn't this fear? It's more of a, man, I can't wait to see how this plays out, to see if it's validated or vindicated, or like our mindset shifts where it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to Indy, or we're going to Bloomington, or we're going to wherever we're going, as long as it's not Ohio State, I'm assuming, or Michigan, where it's like we're not afraid. Like, what do you think we need to see? Is it a competency thing? Because what I think it is, BC, this is just my opinion. If we're going to become our own benchmark, which is what we want, what is it that we want to see in terms of those benchmarks being hit, where we feel good about ourselves versus worrying about what everybody else is doing?
Yeah, first off, for the fans and stuff going into this game, I think you got to look at it as the whole program is not on the line or anything in the Indiana game. Like, you don't have to look at it like this is some 2-4 Indiana team. Like, you're supposed to win this game, or this is 1992 or whatever. This is Nebraska football versus Indiana football. There's just supposed to be a certain outcome. You can put that to bed, and I think that should actually give some people some enjoyment going into that game, like, and see it as an opportunity against a really, really quality football team that's done a lot of good things under Cignetti right away. And let's see where the Huskers stand in that sort of environment without the pressure of, or this expectation that they're definitely supposed to take care of this, or this is supposed to have an outcome, no questions asked. It's going to be a tough game, and that should be embraced. And there's I think, a relief of some anxiety when you get to that point, when you realize this isn't like a gimme or a game like that. So hopefully people get that around their mind and kind of take that in the next week. And then I think the part is what you want to see when the game actually shows up. To me, it's always just like, and I think Rule would say this, is it just a clean football team that's executing to the standard that they feel like they mostly hit like on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And if they can take that on the road and be that type of team, and that's 3 to 7 points less than Indiana on that particular day, they'll still take that. You know, that's still like a part of the process of playing how you can play. So they just need to have that kind of game where you're kind of in control of the stuff you can control. You do well to turnovers. You don't have the pre-snap penalties, some of those things that creep up. If you get the 15-yard, face mask going hard, that's just a tough luck penalty. That stuff happens. And so there are going to be those things in the game. But the stuff you can handle, go do it on the road and see if you can, knock off two stats that get thrown in Nebraska's face for a long time. That's the stat against ranked teams and the bowl drought stat. This is a big chance, for Nebraska, and the next time they could knock that out in one day in Bloomington, and it would be a big moment, no doubt.
What do you think would happen of all that you just said? Because I'm like, I like it. What do you think would happen if Nebraska fans felt like they could just line up and kick a game-winning field goal? Of all the things that you just said, what if Nebraska if Nebraska fans felt like they could line up and kick a game-winning field goal?
Yeah, that's a big part of the anxiety. There is that worry the second half of the season is going to have a lot of games where that could be necessary, or even if it's not game-winning, it's, that kick with 2 minutes left in the third quarter that you just feel like is a tipping point. And so I understand the nervousness around that. It's a tough spot to be in when you don't feel comfortable in that. Chasing three obviously has been the phrase around here, and you're literally trying to track those down right now. So I completely am on board and get those feelings of worry, because the college football game has become so much more like NFL too, where if you have that kicker where, okay, you've crossed the other team's even their 38-yard line and you feel like you've got points in your pocket, it's such a difference, when you're playing with that than when you're not. So, that's going to be a big test for Nebraska the second half of the season. But I said this the other day on our podcast, those kickers, the snappers, everybody involved, they have to look at it as an opportunity. And those guys who have snapped the football, who have had some issues, they've snapped the football correctly 100,000 times right in their life. It's just got to be that deal where in that moment you can deliver on that stage, and you kind of embrace that and say, all right, this is a challenge, but I'm going to hit it, and this is going to be exciting when I do. So hopefully those guys can kind of get their minds right that are in that operation as much as anything, because I think that's the biggest test they're probably facing right now, is more so than the physical part or anything.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, you mentioned Sierra Wright kind of in passing earlier, and I guess my question is, are we not talking enough about the fact that Nebraska's done what they have defensively with essentially their third and fourth corners on the team? Like, is that, I feel like we are just not even acknowledging the fact that the two guys that started at corner in the spring game are not playing right now, and Nebraska still look like they have defensively.
Well, it definitely hasn't been lost by me. Sierra Wright is just a tremendous story, one of the best stories in the conference right now. I mean, for him to pop in and, like, okay, you're replacing arguably the most talented player on the roster, and you kind of don't notice it. And that's not a knock on Tommy. That's a lifting up of Sierra Wright, that he's played at such a level and with such confidence that it's been that way. The thing that really impresses me is how he's a physical guy too. Like, I didn't know everything about him or what the book was on him, but he's been involved in some plays. Like, he was in on the fake field goal Rutgers tried and sniffed it out. And I just think he's not afraid to get right in there, put his body on the line a little bit too, as well as cover well. And he's just playing with such confidence. I don't know if it's because he's wearing that number 15, and I'm not saying he's this guy because he had a great Husker career, but the first time I saw him out there and the way he loves to challenge guys, Alfonso Dennard was like that name that popped into my head of like a guy who was just he would go toe to toe with anybody, and he'd lose a couple, but you knew that whoever he was against, he could have Alshon Jeffrey in front of him, and he's going to fight him. Literally, he did.
Yeah.
If people remember, right? But I think Sierra Wright's got a little of that dog in him, and just happens to be wearing the same number. So it's hard for me to get that out of my head sometimes when I watch him.
BC, how important is it, do you think, to have a grasp on what we feel Indiana is or Nebraska is heading into this one before we have all the hot takes post, right? And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I guess, are we just letting this play out and move on, or is this kind of like, oh, I feel this, so this is what I need to see?
Well, I was trying to say it a little bit in that previous answer. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit.
It's okay. It's all the jokes.
I just think we have to get to that point with Indiana that they're a really quality team, and I think there should be a piece Husker fans have in going into a game like that, where Nebraska's got a chance to win that game. They can play well enough to go there and get it done, but it's not going to be easy. And if you go into it not expecting like, oh, Nebraska is supposed to win this game by 14 because of the histories of the programs or something like that, I do think we are guilty of that sometimes in this market. I've been as well. And you know what? Indiana basketball is guilty of this in their market. They do the same thing when, like last year, like when Nebraska had a far better team. Like you see it, it's like, how can we lose to Nebraska? This is supposed to be Indiana basketball, and there's no credit given to like, okay, maybe the opponent has risen up and they're a stiff challenge, And so I think we have to do the same sometimes when Nebraska's playing a Rutgers or in Indiana, who's not known as like a blue blood program, but what are they today? What does this current team look like? And they've been a handful, and I know they haven't played the best teams, but they've went out and handled their business just like you would want them to. I've been nothing but impressed with them. And so I think there should be some release of anxiety for Husker fans of like, this is a good game coming up in a week and a half. Like get ready to enjoy that sort of opportunity. As I said, you could knock off two big stats in one fell swoop if you handled your business. So that's how I would look at it, and as much and not like, okay, this is Nebraska playing an Indiana program that hasn't done this as a program back 10 years ago. Who cares? Let's look at this year.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, B.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. Reminder, make sure you get out to Union Omaha this weekend, October 12th, 4 p.m. at Werner Park. Union Omaha takes on Lexington. It's Hispanic Heritage Night presented by Central Federal Credit Union. Make sure you get to unionomaha.com for tickets. Andy Kendeigh coming up next. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and we're joined now by Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Hey, Kay, what's up?
Happy bye week, boys.
I mean, kind of.
Enjoy your bye.
You guys are still putting me to work. How about that?
That's right. Never a dull moment for you, DB.
No, Lauren's like, hey, while I've got you.
Yeah. Hey, while we got you, let's talk about Indiana.
It's like, all right, I'm ready. Hey, so I don't want to like reveal all, but how are we looking on grabbing that big time interview she was working on?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Still working on that big time interview. Yeah, a lot of everything was, when you try to land a big interview, you got a lot of correspondence early, and then when it comes down to settling on a date and time, then it's tough. That the final 100 yards is very tough.
I'm just telling you, AK, for our listeners out, if she pulls that one off, it's pretty big.
Yep. We'll just tease it like that. Yeah, hopefully we can get it done. And if not for this bye week, for the next bye week. So, Matt Satilli actually talked to Marcus Blossom from Creighton, and that's going to air tonight. And that's actually a pretty cool interview. He talked. We're going to split it into two parts. He split it into two parts, so something at 6 and something at 10. It's actually a pretty good interview because, for Marcus Blossom, for being in a high-profile position he doesn't do a whole
No, he really doesn't.
He's pretty anonymous for being like in a really big spot here.
But I saw the rough draft that Matt put together last night, and it's a really good interview. He interviews real well. Marcus Blossom really interviews well and tells, and he hits on a variety of topics, and it's something like, here's the thing, like when I explain to people like what fall is like as a sports director in Omaha, and people just don't understand how football centric it is, right? We just can't get to everything else because we're so focused on Husker football. And I know that frustrates some people out there, but we have to feed the masses because that's what people want, right? So on bye weeks like this, we can do things that we don't normally do. And something like an interview with the athletic director of Creighton really fits that bill. And it really comes at a timely, it's really timely, because there's a lot of stuff going on at Creighton, and they're gearing up for another great basketball season, both men and women. And they talk to NIL, which is a subject that it's kind of taken for granted with Nebraska football because it's there. But how does Creighton deal with it? Because they don't have that football program, and yet they have to supply that NIL fund to bring in some of the high priced talent for basketball, volleyball, etc. So it's actually a very good interview, and I encourage people to tune in tonight.
Yeah, Matt's disarming too. Like he's just kind of cool. He's just cool, right? It's easy going.
Yeah, and they both have Boston College background. Matt's a Boston College guy, and so I'm sure they broke the ice that way.
I knew he reminded me of Flutie, and it wasn't just because of his size.
Right. Either him or Jared Phelan, one of the two, right?
He's got Phelan down there.
AK, let me ask you something. What do you think we have to see from Nebraska in a game like this, where before we go on the road, we don't talk more about Indiana or the opponent, we talk more about Nebraska? Like, what do you think we have to see to give us that kind of confidence as a fan base again? Because going into this one, it's going to be all about Indiana. It won't be, well, Nebraska can do this. It will be about, can we stop Indiana from doing, and then fill in the blank.
Right. Well, I think for Nebraska's standpoint, you obviously the obvious one is special teams. You got to clean that up, because that's gonna lose you games here, because of the way it's been going. That's gonna lose you games. You got to tighten up special teams. But I think the bigger picture for me, you got to get the running back run game going, because if you don't run the ball with your running backs, that's going to come into play here down the stretch. Now, I know we got Indiana and Nebraska's got Indiana and Ohio State coming at you, and they're going to be tested like they haven't been tested before defensively, the Blackshirts. But it all comes back to owning the line of scrimmage, and they've been doing a good job defensively owning the line of scrimmage. I think offensively is where they have to really take that next step if they're going to take the next step in winning games here down the stretch, because the back end of the schedule, as we know, is a step up in competition. And I don't think when we were going game by game at the beginning of the year, when we hit at Indiana, I don't think anybody paused there. I think everybody chalked that into the W column, and that's not the case anymore, because they're a different team, and that coach has got them playing hard for them, and they can move the ball. And granted, the company line is Indiana hasn't played anybody, but they're still beating people, and they're beating the pants off people, and that's something to be said.
Andy, as you look at the first half of the season for Nebraska, and if I kind of put you in a corner here and made you give me a letter grade on just overall, because I think there's a lot of nuance there, so I'm curious where you would land on giving a letter grade through the first. We're at midterms right now. What's Nebraska's grade?
I give a solid B. I think if you ask anybody at the beginning of the year, if you say, hey, would you take 5-1 after 6, you'd say, absolutely, sign me up. It's just the way that it happened, the way that the one happened, I think kind of hits people in the wrong way, the way they fell apart in overtime against Illinois, because I think everybody understood that was there for the taking. But I think it's a B grade. I think they've showed some some real progress in some respects in terms of, turnover margin. That was one of the biggies. They won a close game, under 7 or under 1 score, and really that Purdue game was a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter, and they kept their composure. So in those respects, I think it's been great. But I think what it comes back down to, fellas, is that they really haven't put together a full game for 4 quarters, right? I mean, even that Colorado game, the second half, it was just kind of, whether it was taking your foot off the gas or what, it wasn't a complete 4-quarter game. And I think that's what Husker fans would like to see moving forward. And I think Indiana really there's an opportunity there against a good team, a ranked team. You can chalk up another one of those 2016, hasn't happened since, another one of those marks down on your list, because you've been crossing off a whole bunch of them off your list. You can cross off another one if you can beat a ranked team. 2016, that was the last time it happened, which is just unbelievable. They've lost 25 in a row to ranked opponents. If you can beat Indiana at Indiana, that's another one, another drag into slay, so to speak. And they've been doing a good job of it so far in terms of turnover margin and winning close games. Now you got to take the next step.
Andy, do you think, and this is kind of a weird question, but you brought up the Illinois game and how it looked and having an impact on how Nebraska fans feel about it being 5-1 versus if it had happened another way. Do you think if Nebraska had just lost by 10, not going to overtime, not having that boogeyman out there of, can't win an overtime game, that we'd actually feel better?
Maybe.
I wouldn't personally, but I wonder if the fan base would.
I mean, maybe some people might think that, but think about all the stuff that came to the head there. You had a special teams gap. You missed the field goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Laces out. That played a role in that game. The defense kind of fell apart. You missed a couple assignments in overtime, and then you couldn't protect the quarterback. Like everything that you could go wrong for Nebraska did go wrong in that little 20-minute period. And I think that's the thing that really gives Husker fans pause. Some Husker fans pause in that respect because they're still not there yet. Like you can see progress. I think most Husker fans would say, yes, we see progress in this game, but they know that they're still not there yet because of some of the bugaboos that keep coming up, the special teams gaps, the occasional breakdowns on defense, and the occasional inability to protect Dylan Raiola or Dylan Raiola's inability to escape pressure. I'm not going to put the inability to escape pressure on that Illinois game because he had nowhere to go on some of those in overtime. So I think once you get past those, I think there's some real progress being made. And I applaud Coach Rule for being transparent in this whole process. For a guy to come out on Monday and say, yeah, let's do a 30-minute chit-chat session with the media. We appreciate that because and I know Husker fans should appreciate that because that gives you another layer of information that you didn't previously have. And you guys know, talking to media on Monday is so much different than talking to media 20 minutes after a game. And I give Coach Rule props for because that gives us a different perspective.
Andy Kendeigh from KETV. AK, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, fellas, and TV. Thanks always for your hard work.
Oh, no, I got you.
Enjoy.
Easy going. You got some nice folks over there, AK.
Enjoy your bye, AK.
Enjoy your bye, boys.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. That's TV. I'm Ravi. It's AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're brought to you by our friends at Team Jack Foundation. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to get involved. You can donate right there on the page. Check out events coming up. Even find ways to volunteer. However you want to get involved with Team Jack Foundation, they've got you covered. And all they're trying to find a better treatments for childhood brain cancer and one day a cure.
Two quick things.
What's up?
So this was just posted at 8:18.
Is this the NLI thing?
Yes.
It's gone.
Yeah, the NCAA is eliminating the national letter of intent. Financial aid and scholarship agreements are expected to be used.
I think this is the first step that we're gonna see an elimination or at least a changing of signing day now.
Yeah. And the other thing is, Pat said something I think is really interesting. He may be dead on.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been asking about this mindset and what has to happen. And, because once upon a time, there's this thing where Nebraska would go play a game and we'd say, oh, if Nebraska does this, this, and this, we almost never lead with Nebraska now. We always lead with the opponent.
Yeah, well, Monongah's pretty good.
That's what we do. Right?
That's a really good defense at Rutgers.
So I'm just asking the questions. Okay, so how does it look? And there's no fault there. I'm just.
How do we get back to the point where it's about Nebraska, not the opponent?
When you want to become your own benchmark, what do we have to see? Pat said something I think is super interesting. And he said, I think a lot of it has to do, I think a lot of the trepidation and hand-wringing has to do with the fan base is showing towards Nebraska is partly due to the message from Rule.
Mm-hmm.
Rule told the fans this is a 5-7 team until they aren't. Even at 5-1, there isn't a guarantee that you aren't a 5-7 team.
So I definitely get what he's saying.
I do too.
But
I'm a little biased because I like him too, but I do get it.
I 100% get it. But here's the problem, is that means we're being selective about what we're hearing from Matt Rule. Because how many times has he told us that this is a good football team?
I don't think that's selective. I think I know where you're going, but he has said this is a good football team. But it's still relative. It doesn't have any quantity. We can't put value on it.
Sure.
So, yes and no.
But if you say...
He's like, oh, this is a good football team. I mean, you could be a good 5-7 team.
But if I tell you it's a good football team, are you thinking this team's 5-7?
No, but they still only have 5 wins.
I understand that. But
right?
they're 5-1.
So I don't think that's being selective, though.
Maybe not. Maybe it's a concrete versus abstract issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Like they want to see it.
Or they want to,
because that's really what he said.
But if he said, "Hey, I think this is a 8-4 team," or I think not that he would ever say that, right? But if he goes, "Hey, this is a good team. I think this is an 8-9 win team," we would hold that with the same regard, you think, as the 5-7.
100%.
Because it's a concrete thing versus as a good football team.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I can buy that, as opposed to it being selective.
Right.
Because I do think sometimes, maybe it's not with this, but I do think sometimes we're a little selective about what we hear and what we...
I think that may have a lot to do with it.
Yeah, concrete versus abstract is hard.
We are scared to death to go to Bloomington. And I'm telling you that team isn't.
So
they are looking...
You brought
I don't know how they're going to play, but...
They're not scared.
They want the opportunity.
You brought something up, and we'll get to Mike here in just a second, but you brought something up with, I believe it was BC, that I was actually about to express almost the exact same sentiment.
I doubt it.
No, it was really close, actually.
How close?
Pretty close. I mean, you say smart things sometimes.
Oh.
Usually when they're the things I'm thinking already. That seems like a coincidence. I don't know. But you talked about
incredible.
You talked kind of how when you look at Nebraska, and I was going to use the Nebraska-Rutgers thing as an example. Because what did I say about Rutgers earlier this morning? The reason I don't think Rutgers-Wisconsin teaches me anything really
about this game,
about them, is because I think I know who Rutgers is, right? We talked about, hey, I think the dam was about to break. I didn't think what they were doing was sustainable and leading to wins, right? I think Nebraska is the bizarro version of that, where I look at what they've done and I go 9 times out of 10, they probably do score 42 points against Colorado. And 9 times out of 10, they probably do have first half points against Purdue.
Oh, when I was talking about how many points do I think they left on the field?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I think Nebraska is actually
You know what I was trying to get at.
100%. That this team is much closer to having blown about a bunch of these teams out and us feeling totally different about them, but they're still the same team.
Yeah, so do you look at leaving points on the field as a sign of a bad team or a team that can get better?
It depends on the rest of the game.
So that's because it's clear what I'm after, right?
100%.
But I don't want to ask leading questions
because
I'm just giving people a different way to look at it.
Because there's teams that leave points on the field and they lose. Right? Nebraska's leaving points on the field and they win.
Yep.
That's the difference to me, because if you can find ways to win without everything going right, to me, long term, more of those things are going to start going right.
Wow.
So Nebraska, to me, is bizarro Rutgers. It's, hey, Rutgers stats and the kind of ancillary, the peripheral stats and all that kind of stuff lead me to believe that the 4-0 was maybe a little inflated, right? Pretty easily could have lost that game to Washington. all of a sudden they're 3-1, then 3-2 after Nebraska. We could be looking at them as a 3-3 team if they lose to Wisconsin, right? That's all of a sudden not a scary team anymore. Whereas Nebraska has been able to win most of those games with leaving points on the board. And they like I said, they had 200 yards in the first half. The yardage in the first and second half against Purdue is a perfect example of this, right? Almost identical to within like a yard of being identical.
Yeah, and you scored 28 points more.
You score 28 points in one half, you score 0 in the other, right? That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That's a microcosm of Nebraska's season. They've been pretty consistent in a lot of the ancillary peripheral stats and things in the game. Eventually, you're going to return to the mean and what that looks like for points. Let's get to Mike. He wants to talk about some history with Nebraska football. Mike, what do you got?
Hey, guys.
What's up, Mike?
So the issue I have is we just continually want to move it's the constant negativity with our fan base, okay? What would you call the power conference team with the longest bowl drought in the country?
I'd call them Nebraska.
Yeah, you'd probably call them the worst power team out there. And I just think we all need to take a breath here and understand that if you can win a game against Rutgers, scoring 14 points with a 40-mile-an-hour wind, and you're not completing passes, I mean, I don't know what quarterbacks would have been completing passes. It's just we found a way to win, and that's something we have not done at all over the last 7 years. We've made progress. We're going to continue to make progress. I'm not saying that everything's just great. There's always things you're going to need to work on, but just the constant I mean, Damon, when you played, it people need to go back and watch some of those games and realize how tough they were. This wasn't just you guys running through everybody.
Especially in 94. Especially 93, 94.
So I think that's part of the reason that my dander gets raised so quickly. Because it wasn't like we think it was. You know, it's like you just didn't line up and like, I'm just going to run these guys over. Like, we were mad during that time. Why can't they do this? And they should do this. So it seems like the goalposts always move. But, Mike, let me ask you something. Do you look at the points being left on the field as a positive or a negative going forward?
Well, I look at it as a positive because you have a young team in general. You do have some older players. The other thing that I like is the fact that we offensively can do a lot of things, and we need to be able to do that because in today's game, today's college football world, you're not typically going to be able to just line up and run whatever you
do
want.
one thing. Yeah.
You have, right. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, what's our identity?" Well, our identity is pro style. You know, look at Sundays. What teams have? What's the professional identity? They have to change it week to week. You can't just say, "This is who we are. This is what we do." Stop it.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do more than just one thing. And we have a lot of really good players, but we're not a dominant team. And anyone who would expect us to be a dominant team in year two, you just, they're living in the 90s, and I would ask them to go back and watch some of those clips and say, think about the teams that we played back in the 90s. You can go back and watch those games, and those other teams would say, well, if this happened or if that happened, boy, that would have been a close game.
Yeah.
You can play that game all day long, and I'm not. It drives me nuts. Yeah, if we high point a ball in the end zone and that's the thing I would like to see is our 6'4" receivers when the ball's thrown. Yeah, you do see it on Sundays. Those dudes catch the ball. They keep it up. They don't bring it to their body where the DB can knock the ball out.
Yeah,
Mike, appreciate the call.
There's very, very few things I can criticize about this team at this point with where they've been and where they're going.
Yeah,
Mike, appreciate the call. Good stuff there. You know,
where they've been and what. That's kind of where I'm at. And we can have that conversation without saying they need to get better.
The way I kind of look at it is Nebraska's really good at creating opportunities for themselves, right? There's a stat about how often you get to the other team's 40. Nebraska's one of the best
They
teams
live there
in the country at that. And I get that it hasn't always cashed in, but I look at it like on-base percentage in baseball, right? We're going to talk to Jesse Rogers here in just a minute from ESPN. The more you get on base, the more runs you're going to score.
Yep.
Does getting on base guarantee you score runs?
That's like Blake was telling us about the red zone visits.
Yeah.
You keep getting there, eventually you'll score more points.
You're going to break through. Yeah. Creating the opportunities for yourself, that to me is always a positive, and Nebraska's been really good at that. We're going to talk to Jesse Rogers, a little Major League Baseball, coming up next. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, kicking off hour number 3 on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Jesse Rogers, covering Major League Baseball for ESPN. Jesse, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you guys.
This is just how you penciled all of this in, right? I mean, the Tigers on the verge, the Royals. Because I do want to start in the AL, Jesse, because I don't know if it was you that somebody put the idea in my head that the Yankees were one of these teams where if they lost in the divisional round or won the World Series, they wouldn't be surprised either way. And it has kind of been boom or bust. But are you surprised that the Royals have, in my opinion, clearly look like the better team in the series?
Maybe a little bit, and I think it's going to continue that way in Kansas City. If they're expecting a short porch for a few easy home runs from Judge or Soto, they're going to be sorely mistaken, because Kansas City's a completely different ballpark than the in New York Yankee Stadium. They're going to have to win a different way. I mean, yeah, you can hit home runs in Kansas City, but not the way you can in New York. So I'm only a little surprised that the Yankees didn't play better at home. I'm a little surprised by that, but I won't be surprised if the Royals take command of this series playing at home. They have a few different ways to win. Having said that, Judge, there's no stadium that can hold Judge in. So if he gets hot, the series will shift, momentum-wise towards the Yankees. But look, I'm not surprised by any team that advances from here on out. And I would have said that 3-4 days ago. I'm not. It's a roll of the dice. They're all good teams. The regular season doesn't matter in a best of 5. It just doesn't. There's just so many variables in a short series that I'm not surprised by upsets. I picked the two underdogs in the wild card round in the American League. I picked Detroit. I picked Kansas City. I thought a couple favorites would win this round. So the point is, anything can happen. Don't be shocked.
Yeah, the series price for the Guardians was only -130. That was pretty telling that people respected Detroit. But let me go down to the National League real quick, Jesse, just because I'm a huge Dodgers fan, and this is the one team that I didn't want to see. Where do you think the turning point was for San Diego, given how we know how the roster was built, and maybe it was health, but it seems like the last probably halfway, maybe a third through the season down the stretches, I'm like, shoot, these guys may get the monkey off their back. Like, something happened with this Padres team, in my opinion.
I think 3 things, and 2 of them are kind of obvious, or all 3 might be, but no one talks about Mike Schilt taking over. That was a very dysfunctional situation last year, and he came over and settled things down. I think Mike Schilt's a really good people person, good manager. You mentioned health. I think that was key. Star players up and down the lineup finally got healthy. But the final thing is what A.J. Preller did at the deadline. He's been around long enough. He loaded up on the bullpen. You saw what happened last night. It's 6-5 in the 3rd inning, and it ends 6-5. So, it was a confluence of a few things there. Jackson Merrill sort of every team.
Wow.
Every team needs a Jackson Merrill, because young players, they kind of can be a glue guy without even trying, right? It just energizes the clubhouse. I guess my point is, when a young player is doing what Jackson Merrill's doing, you can't have moping veterans, right? You know what I mean? Because they will stand out. They will look bad. There's something about those young players that energize the clubhouse and a fan base, no less. So I think it's a perfect storm of things that finally came together for San Diego. remember, it wasn't that long ago that they were highly, highly touted. The only difference was they switched managers and lost Juan Soto. Big moves, but still, it was a deep team even without Soto. So I guess we shouldn't be that shocked, especially when they loaded up on the bullpen.
Who do you think the Dodgers throw tonight?
Yeah, I mean, man, they have some troubles. This is going to be interesting how they piece together 9 innings. I don't think it's going to be a starter going more than 3 or 4. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're going to try to piece this thing together and get it back to L.A. And be able to start one of their guys. I'm not sure who they're going to go tonight. I really don't. But I think it's going to be sort of a glorified bullpen game by them, and pray their offense comes through.
And nothing like that in an elimination, right? I mean, I'm optimistic.
Yeah, they've been facing that for several years.
Yeah,
they can't keep their pitchers healthy. For all Andrew Friedman has done, I mean, and obviously a lot of it's bad luck. You know, he hasn't solved that equation yet. No team has how to keep their pitchers healthy. They just have an inordinate amount. I mean, you know, Tyler Glasnow would be perfect in these moments, and he's nowhere to be found, and Kershaw and everyone else. But, you know, Glasnow is the big one to me.
Jesse, speaking of not knowing who's going to go tonight, the Guardians still have not decided on a starter either. And that's not even tonight. That's in just a few hours. You think we're looking at kind of a game by committee from the Guardians too, or do you think they're going to settle on somebody?
Yeah, well, the Guardians have the best opportunity to do that because their bullpen is the best. Yeah. I mean, San Diego's good. This one's better. I mean, we're going to see a lot of Cade Smith tonight. You got to stretch him out as much as you can in moments like this. And the reason the Guardians were small favorites is one person, Tarek Skubal. The opportunity for him to start game 2 and 5. I mean, it's the best of 5, and you got the best pitcher in the world going twice. Now, granted, there's no guarantee at 5, but yeah. You understand where I'm going with this. So it's an even match because of that. And all the Tigers need to do is steal 1 at home, and now you've guaranteed Tarek Skubal in Game 5. I mean, the Tigers are in a great spot. It's funny you mentioned the starting pitching, how little these teams have. I mean, Matthew Boyd's fine, but he started 8 games. Mm-hmm. And then who was their last starter? The guy that's opened the last game. He only had Alex Cobb. Oh, Alex Cobb, yeah, going tonight. Mm-hmm. He only had 3 starts, right? So,
and look what the Mets did. It's like,
it's crazy. And so if you find 3, and that's the thing about the Phillies, they might be out, and they have the best starting pitching around. So it's crazy how the game has changed. You either need one or the other. And if you have both, it's great. A starting rotation or a bullpen. But if you have both, it's great. And I guess my point is, long-winded, I'd rather have a bullpen than a starting rotation, because that's how it works. They're just solving for 27 outs. That's the phrase you'll hear from executives. We're solving for 27 outs. We're no longer solving for 9. It used to be 6 innings and get 3 guys that get you 9 outs. Now we're just solving for 27 outs. Sometimes, once in a while, we'll get a Tarek Skubal to do it. But a lot of times, we're going to have to mix and match. So, yeah, it's going to, Alex Cobb on the mound after 3 regular season starts, and he hasn't been on the mound in a month.
Yeah, maybe I'm still traumatized from why they pitched to Tatis last night. But I want to go back to Detroit and Cleveland with Clase, and I get it. He's lights out, Katie bar the door. But with Carpenter's familiarity, I got the sense that they maybe were trying to pitch around him at first. Would you have pitched to Carpenter?
I probably would have, because it's Class A. Most of the time you have a stud closer. You don't finagle with pitching around guys and walking guys. Just go after them. And Class A is untouchable.
Been. Yeah.
So if you can't count on that, what can you count on? I truly believe in that theory. Once you start messing around, it's going to come back to haunt you. Now, a different story if you have some mediocre guy who can't get lefties out. That's the first lefty to hit a homer off of him. So the situation in front of me is 2 out singles. I'm going to pitch to this guy. 99 times out of 100, he's going to get him out, and the game's going to be, the game's going to continue. So I'm not second guessing myself when Emmanuel Clase is on the mound, or Devin Williams with the Brewers.
Yeah, who also struggled down the street. Yeah.
And I might now. Different story. Edwin Diaz has shown some struggles. So if Carl Mendoza just keeps going back to him in the same situations or in the 8th inning to get 5 outs, then you start to say, wait a minute, you're missing something here. But I'm not doing that with Emmanuel Clase, who hasn't been touched all year.
Jesse, how much of that kind of thought process in your mind is just the mentality of those late inning relievers too? Because they're famously, a little finicky. If you start asking them to do things like, we want you to intentionally walk a guy, how much of that's just from a psychological standpoint? You don't really want to put those guys in a spot where they could think, they don't think I can get this guy out.
I think there's something to it. I don't think it's about confidence as much as just throwing them off what they normally do, and that includes, more important than an intentional walk, coming in the 8th inning. I mean, they do it, especially down the stretch, and I didn't look up I haven't looked up how many times the closers have done it, any of these individual guys. But we know it doesn't happen early in the year, that they're set routine for most of the season. It will happen down the stretch, but it is still something different. Give me 5 outs instead of 3. Come in the middle of the 8th inning with men on. So it does throw them off. What I think you opened with just what's gone on, you played those highlights. What I think the league is happy with is that they're scoring one, and there's late scoring, there's early scoring, there's all sorts of different things happening in these games. And that's why there's so much excitement from fans. I mean, it's the most excitement we've had in years. And I think whether it be the rule changes, maybe they've added some juice balls, I don't know. But maybe it's just luck. This is the sort of postseason the league wants. I tweeted this out the other day. There's been 7 go-ahead home runs in the 7th inning or later already, something like that. And there were 5 all of last year. So late inning scoring, late inning comebacks is, and this includes the regular season, is something the league absolutely wants to see. So they love these closers blowing up a little bit. But why it's happening, I don't know. I assume some of it is coming in the 8th inning and trying to get 5 outs. You talk to managers, there's such an adrenaline drop when a reliever comes in the middle of a tight inning, gets out of it, sits back down, then goes back out there 15 minutes later and has to rev it back up. It sounds easy. It can cause problems. You would think in the postseason for a guy like, Clase or whoever, it wouldn't be an issue. But I think there's something to all of that. And, yeah, I think sticking to 3 outs is a lot easier, but you don't always get that choice in the postseason.
Jesse, I think it's 12 or 13 years at least. I think only 6 postseason games for Quintana. And listen, he was brilliant against Milwaukee in that game 3. For you right now, after these 13 years, who is Quintana and who does he need to be right now for the Mets?
Yeah, I know Quintana pretty well. He's a laid-back dude, and he really changed his game plan against Milwaukee. And I was very impressed by that because I will tell you, a decade ago, he didn't have that ability. Quintana is a nibbler. He throws the least amount of pitches in the zone. And so what he requires is chase. Milwaukee is not a team that chases. So instead he attacked, and that's not his norm. And he pitched brilliantly, especially considering it was outside his norm, and he wouldn't have done that well a decade ago. So I'm very interested to see how the game plan changes against a very aggressive team in Philly. Does he revert back to his nibbling ways, or does he do some hybrid? So I think what he did in Milwaukee was extremely impressive and foreshadows another good start. I just don't know what the strategy will be because Philadelphia is definitely different. Milwaukee, a little bit more slug. So very interested to see how he comes out. But I would have had doubts a few years ago with him on the mound in the big moment, and especially with maybe a different game plan, that kind of thing. But I have less doubts. So I could see him pitching well again.
We're talking with Jesse Rogers from ESPN. Jesse, I know we've got a lot of Kansas City Royals fans in the listening audience, so I'd be remiss if I didn't get to Kansas City here a little bit. With their starting rotation and kind of the way it's set up, obviously they're in a better spot than some of the teams we've talked about today. But if Bobby Witt Jr. doesn't start to hit a little bit, how long can they kind of sustain this offense without his bat getting going?
I mean, it's a short series. They can certainly win a game or two. Obviously, they have to win 3 total without him. But you would think you're going to need him, especially at home where the speed matters. I mentioned earlier, Kansas City is a pitcher's ballpark. I mean, I think you're right on the money. Let's put it this way. If they're going to keep advancing, they're going to need them. The next series, best of 7, you can't go quiet for 6 or 7 games, with Bobby Witt and expect to win. Can they sneak past the Yankees? I guess so. But, yeah, at some point he's going to show up and do some damage. Probably more needed by him than even Judge, because there are bigger, there are other Yankee sluggers like Soto and Stanton. So I don't disagree with your premise, but I will say he could show up in different ways. His speed is deadly. So, he could turn a single into a double into a triple, and steal 2 bases, whatever it takes. So, yeah, I would think they're going to need him to be impactful to win. But I'm really interested to see how Kansas City pitches at home against this Yankee lineup. My feeling is you can let Soto sort of beat you, but if you continue to neutralize the right-handers like Stanton, like Judge, you can beat the Yankees. And that's been a problem from them over the years. They never had Soto, so they really were easy to pitch to. A little bit harder with Soto, but if you can neutralize the righties, you can get away with some damage from Soto and still win. And so I'm really interested to see how they pitch him with the bigger ballpark.
2 teams kind of in similar spots from expectations and rosters and regular season success. Who's more apt to stay the course if this ends poorly in the postseason? The Dodgers or the Phillies?
Probably the Phillies. I wouldn't discount Andrew Friedman getting a little antsy with Dave Roberts, with the makeup of his team. There's some talk behind the scenes that the Dodgers, for lack of a better way, are a little bit Hollywood, a little bit more business and less camaraderie and team. And I'm not around it, so I don't want to speak completely. But Ohtani is an enterprise in and himself, right?
Yeah.
Freeman is he's good. Mookie's good. They're not necessarily glue guys. You see the Padres, the camaraderie, the little bit more with some other teams. They're a little bit more.
Well, I look at the Royals. Like, that's a clubhouse I think I would enjoy being in.
Yeah, I mean, all those upstart Detroit, same thing. Being the underdog is always easy. To have the club out. The Dodgers are never going to be the underdog for the next 13 years. How long has he signed? 10 years? I can't remember now. They're never going to be the underdog. So they need to create some mojo. And between the pitching injuries, Dave Roberts being there forever, and all these, I think the Dodgers are more likely to disrupt something there than the Phillies. I think the Phillies will just look at, we had a great season and we came across, this happened, one of the hot teams, it's like Detroit in the AL and the Mets in the NL. There's something with those teams.
I think we forget how good the Mets were supposed to be in the preseason. I mean, that was a good roster.
It was a good roster. It wasn't a great roster.
Yeah.
Like, it was still going to be maybe a year step back. Remember Steve Cohen, the offseason and everything?
Oh, yeah.
So I think we're still a little surprised, but it's a little. I mean, I think that starting rotation on paper, wasn't unbelievable. Like, no one knew what Severino was going to do. Manaya's his best version of himself.
I can't believe him. You talk about a coin flip that settled in. Manaya is
totally.
I'm floored.
Yeah, they've been documenting his arm angle going down to the Chris Sale move, and that's helped mid-season. Who does that? So, yeah, I think I'm a little surprised by the pitching staff. And we didn't know for sure if Diaz coming off the injury last year. So anyway, the point is they have some mojo. I think the Phillies still have the mojo. They'll make some changes, but I don't think there's going to be they're going to upend everything. I think there could be some differences. I mean, think about the Dodgers. How many years in a row? Forget 2020.
I know.
They've been bounced. So, I mean, the manager's seat could be the easiest one to do, but there might be some more complicated, sort of locker room stuff to be dealt with as well. I mean, I could see Willie Adames joining the Dodgers and instantly becoming the glue of that team, like he was in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Jesse, we're going to hold your feet to the fire here a little bit. After what you've seen so far through the wild card round and basically half the divisional round, if you had to pick today who your World Series matchup is, who are we taking?
Yeah, well, one side's an easy one to pick. I mean, I think everyone loves the Padres these days. They've got it all. And, man, that place is rocking. I've been in that place where it's been good, but this is a whole other level happening in San Diego. So I think it's sort of an easy pick, not this. Who knows, though? Yeah, like I said, everything's a roll of dice. But I'll take them. I'll take them, even without Musgrove at this point. That bullpen is just so locked down, let alone what the lineup's doing. So I'll take San Diego on that side. The AL is a little bit more difficult. I mean, at the beginning, I probably would have taken the Yankees, but I'm wavering a little bit there. If Clase didn't give that up, I think I would have been picking the Cleveland Guardians because, again, I'm bullpen. But with Skubal looming in Game 5, they might get knocked out there. I don't know if Kansas City really has it. So it's a tough call there. It really is. But I'll stick with the Yankees. I'll stick with the Yankees somehow getting it done and being able to get past these 2 rounds.
Heard it here first. Yankees-Padres coming up in the World Series. Jesse, we appreciate the time. As always, we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Jesse.
You got it. Be well. Take care.
That's Jesse Rogers from ESPN. What's up?
Series prices. You want the adjusted series prices?
Ooh, yeah, what do we got now?
So the Yankees are still the fave at minus 158.
How much of that's public?
I don't know, but
that's my first reaction to hearing that number.
So they're minus 158.
Mm-hmm.
The Padres, minus 350.
Ooh, that's a big number. I mean, they're up. I mean, they're 1 game away, but I get it.
Mets, Phillies, minus 245.
I think I actually would have expected that to be a little higher.
Really?
I would have expected that to be closer to the Padres number.
Katie bar the door, Quintana.
Just the way people feel about the Mets right now, I would have guessed that to be a little higher.
And the Tigers and Guardians.
Tigers and Guardians. Tigers are the slight fave, right?
They are.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit with Skubal, and
they are the slight fave. Minus 120.
I was gonna say it can't be very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think his kind of.
I kind of am surprised to see the Yankees 158.
Yeah, I would guess that would have been closer to the Guardians number.
Me too.
But I do think I think it's really hard to handicap the Yankees because of the public interest.
I still think people don't think Kansas City's very good.
I think there's perception, right? There's name brands there. We do, we do this with. I feel like we're doing it with Indiana, and we did it with Illinois a little bit. I brought this up at the time when Nebraska lost to Illinois. If that exact same thing had played out with Michigan, we'd feel better, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a name brand thing.
You mean ranked 24th and
ranked 24th, losing in overtime. But if that's Michigan instead of Illinois, even if you could have the exact same rosters, and we would feel differently because it's Michigan, right? That's I think what we're seeing in that Yankees Royals series is you're used to the Yankees winning, even though the Royals do have a more recent World Series than New York. People forget about that. A lot of people forget. It's been a hot minute for the Yankees. It's been tough out there.
You're exactly right.
Yeah,
I mean,
what's up, Sat?
The Red Sox aren't even very good anymore. I have 2 World Series since the Yankees
back in the day
last got one.
Listen to this dude.
Listen, I went that whole time without asking a single Red Sox question. I had to get one. I had to get a shot in.
2018.
You got to be proud of me.
Stephen Pierce.
I will say last night I'm watching Mookie Betts ground out to Xander Bogaerts, and I just got sad.
Those guys used to be my guys.
I was like, I remember. That was fun.
Long time ago.
That was fun. Long time ago.
Next thing you know, you'll be bragging that they won the first World Series.
I wasn't there for that, Shane. I know
you're going to go that far back. I know you got an old soul.
Yeah, I do have an old soul, but my old soul goes back to about 2004 with the Red Sox.
Ravi Bourbon and Scotch. Yep, that's him.
I haven't been drinking a lot of dark liquor lately. It's not really.
Bathrobes and house shoes.
I do love a good robe and house shoes.
Weirdo.
I'm really more of a smoking jacket guy myself. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR, and Lincoln. That's D-Beat. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook and Warhorse Casino, the best place to place your sports bets in Nebraska. Don't forget, all month long, Saturdays in October, there's going to be a $10,000 cash winner every Saturday night at 10:30 p.m. That is cash money. And from 6 to 10 p.m., they'll give away $500 in free slot play every 30 minutes. Get over to warhorsecasino.com for details. DB.
My man, Flaky Jake. Royals Padres World Series. And he's a diehard Bravo, too.
I think I'd rather see Royals Dodgers, not just for your well-being. Brand-wise.
The Dodgers are going to win today.
Let's go get them.
They're going to win today.
Go get it. Let's go. You putting that bet out there?
I was going to say, can we repeat the 84 World Series? Tigers, Padres.
Fudge.
How awesome would that be?
Not very.
It'd be great. Tigers won.
Not very.
Nah, we don't need to do that. Nobody.
And I'm a baseball guy. I just don't know if I could. I don't know if I could stomach a series watching the Padres.
I think you'd have a
playing for a
really hard
championship.
time watching the Padres try and win a world championship. I think you'd struggle with that. I don't think you'd have a good time. Can we talk about the Jets for a second here?
Oh yeah.
We didn't really get to that yesterday because it happened real time while we were on the show.
Yep.
Listen, I'm going to start here. I don't know that Robert Saleh is a good head football coach, right? The record indicates he hasn't been. I know circumstances have been weird. Here's what I'm betting on, though, is that firing him midseason is not going to fix what ails the New York Jets.
And why would you go with Ulbrich?
100%.
Now you couldn't go with Hackett, and I assume and I assume you had to keep it in house. But you know what I would be worried about?
Did you have to keep it in house?
I mean, who are you going to come in to be an interim? I mean, not everybody has Barry Alvarez sitting upstairs.
You're not gonna call Bill Belichick? See what he's doing?
You think that dude's going back to New York?
Why not?
Yeah, he ain't going.
You don't think he wants to go beat up on the Patriots?
He ain't going back to New York.
Okay. Who else is sitting out right now? Who else isn't coaching?
You just don't see that often.
No, you don't. But if you're looking for a significant upgrade, if you're looking for a change,
you feel that breeze?
I do. I've got a little air going.
I feel like my ankle's ashy.
I feel. Is your name Larry?
Hey.
If you're gonna make a change, I always find it kind of ironic when they're like, "Oh, we need a big shakeup," and it's like, okay, so we're gonna promote a guy that's already working in the building. Like, how big of a shakeup is that really? You know what I mean? And it's not just the Robert Saleh thing, right? Because this is a poverty franchise, right? The way they operate, this is a dysfunctional franchise from top to bottom. Because let's start with Nathaniel Hackett. You know why Nathaniel Hackett's in the room to begin with?
Aaron Rodgers.
Because Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson goes, hey, you gotta get rid of the guy. Go get Nathaniel Hackett, right?
Well, it's Aaron Rodgers.
Right. No, but Aaron,
which undermines.
But it's your owner listening to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, which undermines Saleh. But I mean, Lazard is there. Cobb was like 100%. All those guys are
it's
there.
All Aaron Rodgers, right? So if you want to fire somebody, get a big change. Aaron Rodgers is the guy that's been making these changes.
Yeah.
Right. And now he's going to go on Pat McAfee and he's going to say, "Oh, I don't make personnel changes. Oh, I don't have any input on coaching staff."
That's today, right?
Yeah, it's in like an hour or a couple hours, I think. But he's going to say all these things. Guess what?
If I'm paying a guy $1 million or almost $1 million to come on there,
I'm not paying that guy.
Well, you hate Aaron Rodgers.
I do hate Aaron Rodgers. I think he's trash. I think he's a trash human being, and he's also a bad quarterback now.
I'm not going to vouch for him anymore, though.
No,
because I do think it was undermined. I just can't.
He's undermined Saleh at every turn.
Yeah.
And then Woody Johnson, because he's invested in this guy, then feels like he has to undermine his head coach.
Well, this is it for Rodgers, though.
You would think. He's got another year left on his deal, I think.
He can't stay in New York if you don't have any success this year.
I mean, he looks terrible. Yeah. You think having Ulbrich instead of Robert Saleh is really going to change that team?
So let me get back to that real quick. And it's no disrespect to Ulbrich because at least I think the players will relate to him, but I think it further fosters the defense versus offense thing.
Yeah.
That I could see that being a thing.
100%, especially because, okay, Rodgers has his guy in Nathaniel Hackett there now, a guy that none of us think is very good, right? I mean, I know we don't think he's a good head coach.
Sean Payton certainly did.
I know we don't think he's a good head coach, right? But do we think he's actually a good offensive coordinator?
I don't know anything without Rodgers.
I don't either. So I'm sitting here, I go, okay, so we got this Nathaniel Hackett guy, and then we got kind of this offense versus defense. You got this Aaron Rodgers stuff versus everybody else. There is no way in my mind that this actually makes the Jets a better football team. Because guess what? Guess what's also hanging out there that Woody Johnson decided to bring up yesterday? And why I also know they're a trash franchise. We forget about the whole Hassan Reddick thing?
Yeah.
Hey, let's trade for a guy that we know wants a new contract and then not give him a new contract. What kind of idiocy is that when you're running a franchise? You trade for a guy.
And he told you what time it was.
It's literally the only reason he was available. Yeah. You think the Eagles are like, hey, we have a happy Hassan Reddick, let's get rid of him.
You know what's funny? He's just taking a year off.
He's just chilling. Apparently, like 90 minutes away. He lives in New Jersey. He's just chilling. And this is a dude that you knew when you acquired him needed a new deal. That's why you acquire him, is to give him a new deal.
That's who Coach Rule should have come out.
Hassan Reddick?
With against Indiana.
Yeah, come hang out. Come hang out,
It's
Hassan.
not that far.
No, it's a quick little flight.
Yeah, 45 minutes maybe, 50.
I wouldn't even worry about it. You know?
Sitting a plane up there to get
But
him.
that's how I know
He's got time.
That's how I know whether Robert Saleh is a good head football coach or not is immaterial to this discussion. It's a bad franchise. Look how good Sam Darnold is, and look how long it took him to recover from being a Jet. Like, these poverty franchises are so much more toxic than people realize. Like, look at the Panthers are a great example. Like, God help Sam Darnold. He went from maybe the worst franchise in football for the last 40 years.
Now, that's debatable, though. Who is the worst team in the NFL?
Worst team and worst franchise are different things.
Well, the Jets are a bad franchise.
They're a terrible franchise. There are teams that are worse than the Jets right now, but I don't know how
Carolina's had more recent success, though, than the Jets.
100%. But right now, after Dave Tepper has taken over, that's one of the worst franchises in football. After that ownership has taken over, that's one of the worst franchises in football.
Carolina played in a Super Bowl.
They did. Dave Tepper ain't getting them there anytime soon. That is a
my man, OBJ DeLone.
That is a
Delhami.
Dumpster fire franchise. And that is as a direct result of ownership. The Jets, at least, it's not entirely Woody Johnson's fault because they've been a dumpster franchise for much longer than he's been around. But that's a terrible, terrible franchise. Robert Saleh isn't the reason they're a bad franchise, right? Aaron Rodgers isn't even the reason they're a bad franchise. Now, the way they're catering to Aaron Rodgers is kind of a microcosm of why they're a bad franchise. But firing Robert Saleh isn't fixing any of your problems if you're the New York Jets. That's what I'm betting on.
I don't see
I don't even think they make the playoffs. Let's put that out there.
And then with
that division is not good.
It's not good. I'm taking the Bills to make the division, and nobody's making a wild card out of that division.
And they don't even look good.
No, they don't. But I trust them more than I trust anybody else in that division.
I mean, and they get to play the division.
Yeah, they get to play against that dumpster fire of a division.
I mean, look, don't look now, but they have the Jets up next.
Yeah, when they got Aaron Rodgers with his peg leg out there trying to run around and do stuff.
Oh, wow.
Have you seen that thing?
Hey, I was just looking at the highlights and I go, that looks like it hurts.
It does. He looks like he's got Alex Smith's leg after the broken leg.
I like Alex Smith.
I do too. I love Alex Smith
on the set. He's actually smart too. I like his breakdowns with the picks.
I think Alex Smith is really smart.
He's kind of the anti Rex Ryan.
And I also really, you mean smart?
He just is always doing so much.
Yeah.
Man.
That's Rex Ryan's thing. He was like that when he was coaching.
Hey, did you hear Max Crosby sound off on?
No, what did Max Crosby say?
McAfee and guys that go on that show just to run their mouth. Oh, yeah. He had a full-fledged, like, you don't know me. You've never talked to me. Don't question what I'm – no, seriously. And I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself. Max is about that life.
Oh, yeah. He stands on business. I'm not trying to –
Yeah, you keep it pushing.
I'm not trying to mess around with Max Crosby.
That dude has been to the bottom and back. Keep it pushing.
Yeah, I'm not trying to mess around with Max Crosby. He's a scary individual. You know who I will mess around with?
And that dude has fought demons and won.
Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kicking out that leg. He's down. Good to go. I got him.
Yeah, and I forgot our old Florida State. I almost said the wrong thing. Seminole fan, Ryan Peters.
Yeah.
He's got the future on the Padres.
Oh, that's a good future.
So we're walking back to the vehicle, and he's like, yeah, because it was opening. So somehow I got on. I get home and watch the Dodgers. It's like, yeah, by the way, we got a future on San Diego.
Got him at like plus 1,400.
Like, come on, man. You and your fathers.
That's good value. Hey, man, he was betting against his own team in the Diamondbacks in that division, too.
Yeah.
Gotta love that value. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Coming up next, we got Stephen Means covering Ohio State. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And just kind of want to put it on your radar a couple weeks from now, well, like 3 weeks from now, we'll be back here with another breakfast live show. It'll be November 1st heading into the UCLA game. Just put that back in your Rolodex. Maybe put a little mark on your calendar. You need to be out here. Maybe head into work a little bit later that day. Come hang out with me and DB.
It's also the first day of American Indian Heritage Month.
There you go. I am an American. I am an Indian, but I'm not American Indian. It's a little different.
I just throwing that
Just
out
letting you
there.
know.
Yeah.
It's all right. Come celebrate American Indian Heritage Month here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill.
First round of the high school playoffs as well.
Yeah, it's a good week. It'll be fun. Get after it a little bit. That's weird to me that there's only about 3 weeks left in regular season.
It goes fast.
It does go fast. We're already halfway through college football season.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's sneaking by on me.
We got a big one this week, Elk South. We are.
You dialed in?
Yes. Ready to go.
Our guy Tim Verghese was just tweeting about your quarterback a minute ago.
Braylon Warren.
Yeah, so off to a nice start. You know?
Yeah.
Sophomore.
I like Braylon a lot. He said he's a really, really good kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a lot on his plate. I've said this a lot about Rizak, and people thought I was just blowing smoke.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big boy offense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's had a lot to take in.
And the thing you brought up the most about Rizak was kind of his leadership, his ability to control that huddle.
Yep. And to get us in and out of a lot of things.
And be in control when there's a lot of good players in that huddle.
Yep.
Right? That's harder than people realize. And it's a lot.
Well, he's going through it right now. Right? I mean, he's got Purify and Cotton and Eli Johnson and Tate.
It's even harder when you're young.
Christian, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Braylon doesn't have the advantage of being a senior. Right? Now, Anthony started it early.
And sometimes it's not in his I don't think it's in his personality. Sometimes it's just be like STFU.
Not quite as natural for him to.
Anthony would be like. Zip it.
I've spent some time around his dad. I think he comes by that honestly. I mean that in a good way, right? Like that's just kind of how they operate. Like, hey, this is what's up.
Yep.
Like, Rizaks are going to be in charge here.
Yeah. So
and you're all going to fall in line, and we're going to get it done.
So he's coming around. He's still a young guy, but he's coming around.
He's talented guy. A lot of arm talent there for Braylon Warren. So that'll be a fun game.
So on Sutter, it's up for game of the week, and it is behind.
Is it?
Yeah, it is not winning.
What's winning right now?
So Westside Elk South is down about 300 votes. It is Elkhorn at Bennington, Columbus Lakeview at Scotus Central Catholic, Sandy Creek and EMF, and Elkhorn South and Westside.
Yeah, a lot of times those some of the smaller class games do really, really well in these polls.
Yeah.
Those people like to represent, which I'm all for because I am pro small high school football. My name is Ravi Lulla, and I approve this message.
I'll punch you right in Shane, we can talk Bennington this week if you want to. You want to get Coach Leonard.
Okay, I'll get on that.
I think they've won 222,000 games in a row.
Yeah, I don't think they've lost since sometime in the mid-'60s.
No, it's been a minute. They may be at 40.
They got to be close.
Will this be?
This might be 40.
It's a lot.
It's today. I'd have to check. I don't know off the top of my head, but they're getting pretty close.
We have it on good authority that if Elkhorn South Westside does not win game of the week from Pinnacle Bank, that the big game chain will be at Westside.
Ooh, so Hurrdat will be representing one way or another.
Yeah.
Where
are they going to send? So, I mean, sometimes with those votes, I think people just want him to go far away.
I do too. I think sometimes they troll him a little bit to make him have to drive a long way.
He does like Sandy Creek, though. Maybe that's where
he does. He's got friends all over.
Yeah.
I am a little disappointed. I wish that, or I might end up going to Miller North Kearney.
So that's at Buell?
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I still don't know who Miller North is.
I don't either. I still think they're a growing team. That's a process, right?
Yeah. Westside played their freshman team yesterday. I like their gear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man, they wore black unis a couple weeks ago.
I wonder who's doing that.
I think Behringer's doing it.
No, it's got to be Burrell. He's team swag.
He is. Well, so it might be a little collaboration because when I talked to Behringer I think it was last year.
That is totally in Coach Burrell's wheelhouse. He was always sharp. I mean, his towel game was right. Like, no, listen.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Serious.
It's just funny. I think it might be a little collab, right? Because when I talked to Behringer last year, he was kind of talking about like updating the gear and kind of refreshing the program a little bit. So I think it might
they're
be
Nike school, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what my nice hoodie is. It's that nice Nike hoodie.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know. I know.
Maybe I'll wear it on Friday.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
Well, it's a bye week, so that's good. And, I don't, okay.
Zip it. Lakeview and SCOTUS is winning currently.
Lakeview and
Columbus,
SCOTUS.
Lakeview, and SCOTUS.
Okay. I like.
I don't know if they're going to make up 300 votes.
No, especially as we get down to it, a lot of times the smaller schools rally the communities and get a bunch of votes in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a first-hand account of Lakeview.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were really
you
good.
saw them over the summer. You really liked them.
They were sharp.
They were pretty sharp in the 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you guys have linemen? Because this looks pretty good.
That part's pretty good.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because when I saw Miller North over the summer, I was a little concerned. Just being totally honest. I was like, Now, to be fair, Pearson and Caden weren't there at least in the games that I saw. So obviously that's a pretty big factor. But even Zion Rush, I thought has looked a lot better than he did over the summer.
I think you just over time you learn, and that's kind of where we started with this was Braylon Moore, and he's getting better in terms of getting the ball out of his hand, and because sometimes he doesn't want to make the big mistake, so he'll hold it a little bit, but he's really starting to come with, and he's funny too. Like his personality's starting to come out. Yeah, the handful of weeks, he's kind of quiet and.
Well, he's like 15 years old, right? Like that's. I get it.
I was messing with him yesterday. I finally gave him a nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't share that out loud. But I told him, you got to earn the nickname thing. But he's a good.
I'm still waiting on mine. You always kind of shift on mine. Like he's gonna be L2, L3.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Most of them you can't say on air.
My man Rav, he wants to know what the Jets did to you.
Jets didn't do anything to me. I don't like people that try and scapegoat.
Yeah.
That's not my deal. Like
that's what it is, Rev.
Like take responsibility. Like Woody Johnson's out here acting like this isn't his fault. You're the owner. You're in charge of everything.
Who is the worst team in football though?
The worst team?
Yeah.
Currently?
So you have the Patriots, the
Patriots are very bad.
The Panthers, Cleveland could be there, but their roster is better than those other two teams.
Man, Raiders.
Yeah, Raiders stink.
Now here's the thing.
The Raiders absolutely. The Raiders absolutely.
Here's the thing about being a bad franchise in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this ought to be good.
Jacksonville's pretty awful.
You can be a
better roster.
You can be a bad franchise, and it doesn't seem to matter because you're still going to exist. You're still going to make money. You're still going to be fruitful. That's the bad thing about it. And it seems like and the reason why I bring that up.
I don't know. Apparently the Raiders are broke.
Well, that's because Mark Davis is broke.
That's because he spent $500 million on a house outside of Las Vegas, which everybody says looks stupid, and I kind of agree.
Probably looks like his haircut.
Wow.
Big Mark Davis guy.
There's a lot going on.
Carolina's the Browns are up there too, but it's like, am I crazy?
Why won't the Browns just play Jameis?
I don't know. Because that's what I was going to say. Am I crazy to think if they just bench Deshaun? I'm not even talking about cutting.
Well, he quit on the team.
Yeah, right.
You're just going to have to you're going to have to eat that $240 million.
Whether that's actually cutting him or just benching him and being like, stay away from us.
What did I tell you the hard cap hit was yesterday?
172.
Yeah, in 2025.
Yeah. This year, if they cut him, it's 172.
And we chuckled.
Nick Wright's talking about yesterday. He's like, okay. He's talking about them packaging their first-round pick this year, which is going to be really good because they're terrible, with Deshaun Watson just to get rid of him so that another team can cut him, and that way their dead cap money is only like 80 instead of 172.
Which is Russell Wilson territory?
Yeah, which is like at least viable. We can eat that territory versus 172 is totally unprecedented. That's not a number. So I don't even know what that looks like. If you're a franchise, right? Like, do you have to file for bankruptcy? Like, does he just have $172 million lying around? Like, I don't know how that works.
It is without question, and we've seen some bad ones, the worst contract ever.
It might be the worst transaction in sports history.
So they gave up 3 firsts or 4?
4, I think. I think it's 4. Because I think it was 1 that year and then 3 futures. And then they signed him to an all-guaranteed $240 million deal
I'm well aware.
when he hadn't played in a year because he was under 30 sexual assault investigations. It's not like there weren't red flags here. It's not like it was, oh, he's just coming off an injury. We think he'll be okay. It's not like he was, hey, it's Tom Brady. He's a little old, but we're going to give it a shot here. No, there were red flags all over the place. It looked like I-80 heading to a Nebraska game with all the little red flags on the trucks as we're driving down the interstate.
Wow.
Okay? That's how many red flags we're talking about with the Deshaun Watson situation. Like, as much as I dislike Aaron Rodgers, that's infinitely more defendable than what happened with Deshaun Watson.
You're incredible.
I mean, what are we doing?
Do you know that, and I just want to say this real quick before we get off there, who do you think is the division fave in the East, NFC East?
The division fave, I'm guessing it's still the Cowboys.
It's the Eagles.
No, get out of here.
Plus 140.
No.
Yeah, Washington's still plus 200.
I mean, hey, go get some free money.
Wow.
That's not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. But if you are, go to Warhorse Sportsbook and see if you can have a little fun. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow on Hurrdat Sports Radio.